Brad, will we be able to hear Brian? I'm sorry, see him also, or just hear him? Just hear him. Okay. 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 Are you ready to go, Jeremy? Okay. 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 Okay, we're good to go. All right. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. This is the organizational meeting of the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board. This meeting is called to order. Our first item on the agenda is item 1B, the election of Governing Board President for 2022. As president, I will open the floor for nominations or discussion on board president. I will actually start the conversation because I'm not sure anyone else is going to make any nominations. I would like to nominate Kim Moran as president of the Litchfield Governing Board for 2022.
Can I second that?
Just a nomination right now. Obviously, Kim needs to accept the nomination, and then I will move if there's no other nominations on the floor.
I would accept the nomination with honor.
I would like to nominate Dr. Dowling or me, and we could flip a coin. Because I don't think either of us want to do it, but I think we need, one of us has to.
Okay, maybe one nomination at a time. You can nominate, and if Dr. Dowling accepts, someone can motion if that's what he wants to do.
You're asking me?
Dr. Dowling, you have been nominated. Would you accept that nomination?
Do you get paid for this job?
I'll pay
About
you.
as much
I'll
for
pay
being
you
the
how much
governing
you
board,
want.
as much as being on the governing board pays you. So yes.
No, at this time, I declined to be nominated for president. If I'd been here a few more months, and maybe it'd be different, but I feel comfortable in the direction of the current board members. Really yourself. So at that point, I
Okay.
respectfully decline.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your service. I will motion to nominate Kim Moran as president of the governing board for 2022.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is for you to read the oath of office. I'm not sure if you have that or not. Actually, if you're looking in board docs, you can see that, Kim.
Yes, I see that here.
So I'm sorry, there's no official passing of that. If you'll just read that out loud for everyone to hear, please.
Okay. I, Kimberly Moran, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of President of the Litchfield Elementary School District number 79, according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you for offering to do this job. If you are prepared, you may continue the meeting here, continue presiding over the meeting, or you can have me do it. I believe you should do it as the president, but I just want to make sure you're prepared.
Yes, I am prepared.
Okay, I will bring you your information. One thing just that was told to me earlier, and Kim, before you continue, just as an announcement, we have obviously our people are joining us via YouTube, and we have someone joining us via Zoom tonight that's going to be making a presentation. So I would just ask each of the board members to try to articulate their words as best as possible to make sure that everyone can hear us, both in the room and out of the room. Speak slowly and clearly, if at all possible, to make sure that everyone can follow the really important items on the agenda. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Clymer. The next item on our agenda is item 1D, which is the authorization to use the governing board president's electronic signature stamp for employment contracts.
Could I make a request? Is that the people that are wearing a mask, put your mouth very close to the microphone, because there's no S's or whatever. You did a good job, Danielle. I could hear you very well, but it was very hard to hear you just now, Kim. Just put it real close.
No problem. Is there any discussion on item 1D?
Trying to catch up here.
No, I move to approve the authorization of governing board president's electronic signature for employment contracts.
A second.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is item 1E, which is to authorize the use of signature stamp of governing board president for signing of terms and conditions for building renewal grants. I will open the floor for discussion. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve to authorize the use of the governing board president's signature for terms and conditions for building renewal grants as presented.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is item 1F, resolution authorizing the execution of warrants between board meetings. I will open the floor for discussion. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. I will move to authorize the use of I will move to authorize the resolution of the execution of warrants between board meetings as presented.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is item 1G, authorization to continue use of hearing officer for employee hearings and student discipline hearings. I will open the floor for discussion. Hearing none, I will move to authorize the continued use of hearing officer for employee hearings and student discipline hearings as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is item 1H, appoint the Arizona School Board Association legislative delegate and alternate delegate to represent LESD. I will open the floor for discussion.
Do we want to just discuss? I know we have a new board member. I'm not sure the last time that we did this for Mr. Honak too, it was his first meeting. So if we want to just go through quickly what this means and what the responsibilities are.
Yes, I think our current delegate, Board Member Zaidama, would be a great person to give us a summary if she would be willing.
So as the delegate, basically, we are responsible for representing our board at various ASBA things that involve voting on things like getting new board members for them, or also for resolutions that they're doing, bylaws change, things, whatever they're doing, basically you would be the representative for our board. And we discuss things as a board and decide what our stances on the things, and then you would go and vote based on that at various events. There's the law conference, and then there's in December, there's the annual conference, and usually there's something at the Maricopa County Board of Directors meeting too.
Are there any board members who have an interest in volunteering for this position? Do we have,
I will do it if nobody will do it.
board member Zaidama, you said that you would be willing to take this designation and be our representative?
Yes.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
No, I would move to nominate board member Zaidama to the position of ASBA legislative delegate for LASD.
I will second. The motion on the table is to appoint board member Zaidama to be the ASBA legislative delegate and representative for the district. I believe we also need to nominate an alternate delegate. Do we have anyone who would be willing to be the alternate in the need that board member Zaidama would be unable to be our representative?
I will volunteer to be the delegate. Alternate delegate, sorry.
Okay. Then I believe we should perhaps have a revised motion.
Okay, I will revise the motion to move to appoint Melissa Zaidama and Danielle Clymer as delegate and alternate delegate to the ASBA legislative committee, I don't know, as presented.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you both for your service to this important position. Our last item on our organizational meeting agenda is item 1I, the approval of LASD governing board member to serve as a non-voting director to our educational foundation board. Once again, board member Zaidama has been the representative, and she could perhaps give us a summary of what is involved in that position.
So this is the easiest one. They have meetings about once a month. You attend, you don't vote, you just kind of listen to what they have to say, and then you can share information at board meetings that you learn from what's going on with the foundation. And then we can also, if they want some information from us on things that are going on, you can share information with the foundation board members at their meetings.
Are there any board members who have an interest in taking on this position, this task?
I was just going to ask first, Melissa, are you interested in continuing the job, or would you prefer that? I know it's just another time consideration with a number of meetings and things like that. Would you prefer that someone else be the liaison for the year?
If someone is interested, I'm happy to pass it on, but I'm also totally fine with doing it. So however that works out.
Okay. Anyone else interested?
Doesn't look like it.
I will volunteer.
Oh, you will volunteer.
I will do
Okay.
it. Yeah, I actually did it prior to Melissa doing that. So yeah, it's a
Okay.
fun job. I'm happy to do it.
Great. If you are willing and able, then I move to approve board member Clymer to be the representative to the Litchfield Educational Foundation Board.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Danielle, for your willingness to serve in that capacity.
My pleasure.
That is all of the items on our organizational meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn our organizational meeting.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. We are adjourned. I will ask. Seeing that it's 5:50, are we okay to go ahead and continue with our regular meeting, or do we need to wait until 6 p.m.? Okay, then we will take a short break and be back at 6 p.m.
I would just like to say, I don't think we've ever been 10 minutes early. leaving any meeting. So congratulations to everyone up here for getting that done in 20 minutes instead of 30. Nice job.
Are we set? Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, and this is the regular meeting of the Governing Board of the Litchfield Elementary School District. Based on this meeting is take two. Item 1A, this meeting is now called to order. Item 1B, to start our meeting, we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are now on agenda item 2A, the activity to unite, which will be led by Shelley Hornback. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you, President Moran, and congratulations on your new role. Thank you as well to immediate past President Clymer for your service. We're grateful to both of you and to all of our governing board members. This evening, we will unite in a moment of silence in honor of Karen Curtis, a longtime member of the Litchfield family. She retired from Litchfield School District several years ago and recently passed away. Karen was known for her kindness and generosity. She went out of her way to boost people up and to inspire goodness in this world. She was Litchfield Elementary School District's first ever national distinguished principal. Karen Curtis was responsible for bringing multi-age education to Litchfield School District. She led Scott Libby Elementary School to the honor of A+ School of Excellence, and she was the founding principal of the A-rated Rancho Santa Fe Elementary School. Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of Karen Curtis. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Hornback. Our next item is 3A, recognitions and celebrations, which is informational only and will also be led by Mrs. Hornback.
Thank you, President Moran and members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning. Tonight is a very special celebration. We have 3 people to celebrate specifically. We have 3 outstanding employees who are here with us today. They are leaders within our district, and we are honoring them because of their participation in National Board Certification. National Board Certification is a voluntary process. It's an advanced teaching credential that goes well beyond state licensure. This is a 3-year process, sometimes more. And the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards uses this opportunity to certify teachers who successfully complete a rigorous certification process. National Board certified teachers are teachers who are not only the very best in the state, they are the best in the country. This is akin to the highest level of certification that a professional can earn in their field. Litchfield participates with the Arizona K-12 Center in a cohort process for any of our teachers who would like to opt in and reflect on their teaching process, on their teaching experience, so that they can be better in their field. And then they apply to receive this certification. They often tell us that the value of this work is the reflection process. It's their opportunity with their peers, with their cohorts, and with distinguished mentors to pause, reflect on their own craft so that they can be there day in and day out for their students. These are among the very best teachers in our district, the state, and the country. We're so delighted to welcome our brand new nationally board certified teacher, a 5th grade teacher from Palm Valley Elementary School, which, let's not forget, is our A-rated school, an A+ School of Excellence, and a national board, a national blue ribbon school. Our brand new national board certified teacher is Miss Julie Larson. Come on up, Julie. Come on up. We're going to have you step aside, please. And in a moment, we will take a photograph with President Moran and Superintendent Gunning. Pardon me, though. I said Palm Valley. You're at Rancho Santa Fe Elementary School, an A-rated school. We're so proud of that. Congratulations, and thank you to our Bronco family and to you for being a leader. Thank you. Also, we have two teachers that have renewed their certification. They earned national board certification, and then they have an opportunity to go back and renew that. These two folks also serve as mentors and supporters to our 19 teachers that are currently in the cohort pursuing national board certification. So let's celebrate the continuation of certification with our instructional coach from Barbara B. Roby Elementary School, Miss Allison Paterno. So delighted. Thank you, Allison. And also the continuation of certification with our 5th grade teacher at Palm Valley Elementary School, Miriam Wilson. Thank you. Thank you. While President Moran and Superintendent Gunning come up for a photo, I just want to mention that we do have 19 teachers currently pursuing national board certification. Among the elementary school districts in the state, that makes us the 2nd largest cohort, elementary cohort in the state. So that's a lot of ambitious teachers here in Litchfield, and they are trying to follow in your huge footsteps. Thank you so much for stepping left. I'm going to take a photo of you all, and or to your right, please. We're just so proud of you. Thank you, President Moran.
Thank you, Mrs. Hornback. Our next order of business is item 3B, which is a presentation on data and assessment platform, which will be presented by Brian Owen via Zoom. Since he is presenting via Zoom, we are going to hold all of our questions and discussion until the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Madam Superintendent. Can everybody hear me okay? I hope so. Maybe Brad, you drop me a text if the audio isn't coming through from my end. A little later on thank you, sir. And on the agenda, we're going to ask you to approve a data and assessment platform for us. And what I'd like to do is just go over some background, reintroduce you to what it is that we currently do and some limitations and some challenges that certainly the last several years have brought upon for us. And then the new system and how that system would help us overcome some of those challenges. Next, please. This is just my title slide. I am Brian Owen, Litchfield Elementary School District's Director of Assessment and Accountability. Next. And I always like to begin presentations just with the assessment department's mission and vision, because I think it's important, because our mission is, and I will read this, to provide the highest quality district assessments, data, and academic information to all district staff. And we want to accomplish this by ensuring alignment to state standards, which is a very important part of what we do year to year, and state expectations, provide the highest quality data and professional development, and deliver most informative measures of student academic growth. The next slide, I always like to show, because this shows how the main components of what we do fit into the 4 main pillars of our district's overall mission. Next, so what I'd like to do is go through what it is that we currently have in place. This is our current assessment schedule for this year, 21-22 school year. We are on a district level assessing math and reading. We have pre-post assessments in both. In math, you can see we have grades kinder through 8, and in reading, grades 2 through 8. In math, we have 2 interim assessments that we call, well, I call, some people don't call them that, but I call them district formative assessments, and those are aligned to our math instructional pacing guide. And then in reading, we have a mid-year reading benchmark. They are assessed both in person and remotely now to, well, A, for quarantine students, and B, for our new digital learning academy that we have. Next, sir. The 2 main components of the system, and you're going to hear me say this a few times. So Moodle is our assessment platform that we currently use. It's locally hosted, which means we have it on an install on a server in one of our buildings. It's behind our firewall. Most of the content is created by us. I would estimate probably about 92 to 95% of that content has been created by LESD employees over the last 12 years or so. We have approximately 2,000 items that are aligned to current standards, and all of the items in that system are multiple choice. That's our assessment platform. The other main component of our assessment process is the Inform system. Inform is our online data reporting platform. And then it also, sort of the other half of that, it tracks professional development, which is outside, of course, of the achievement testing. Next, sir. This is a typical timeline for a school year. So our assessments take place during the course of the school year. And then, of course, when the school year is over, we have all of the results in. That's when a lot of analyses take place. After we get the state results back, those items and the assessments are analyzed, and summer work happens, which is mostly revisions and item and assessment creation if we're going to either create a new assessment or just create more items or different items for the assessments that we have. Next, sir. And just to recap, I know I've presented these before, but the system, because of the continuous cycle of just analysis and revision, we strive to get these tests to be as highly related to the state expectations as possible. So we do that in several ways. This is just an example. This is from the 2018-2019 school year. In my opinion, sort of the last typical school year in terms of a year of assessment. And this is just, these are math correlations. These are overall correlations between the overall percent correct and the scale score on the state math assessment. You can see on those spring tests down here at the bottom grid, for those of you who haven't seen this before, we were getting correlations of close to 0.9, which are very high correlations. Actually, some of these are the highest correlations that I have had the pleasure of working with here at the district. And next slide, sir. And then, of course, what we strive for is to have them as predictive as possible, even from the beginning of the year. And that's why that constant process of analyzing and revising is employed. And you can just see here, this is in a comparison from the 18-19 school year. Again, in my opinion, the last typical school year we've had in terms of assessment. You can see the predicted proficiency rates from beginning of the year through the year. And this is math. And then, of course, that last one by grade, the last bar is what ended up happening on the state assessment, which back then was called AZ Merit. We had very high levels of predictability. However, the last few years in particular have exposed some limitations and some challenges. If we could do next. So I'd like to go over some of the main ones. One of the things is Moodle is our system. So, well, we didn't build it necessarily. It's an open source system. that's free, but we have a local install, and that also means it's behind our firewall. And in order to make that accessible to the outside, there's a lot that has to happen to make that possible. One of the things is to get and Brad, if you start rolling your eyes, I can't see you, so it's okay. Like a security cert, you have to poke a hole in the firewall, have to get access from the outside. And we can't do that at the same time that students have access in the district. So what's happening now in the last couple of years is that the DLA students, and those who are assessing remotely, must test on different days than the in-person students, which extends the test windows, of course. The Moodle system only contains the items. All of the resources that we have to help interpret the data that we report, they're created separately. So we create things such as our item crosswalks, things that we call our item descriptors, which have descriptions of the items. And all the analyses are done outside the system and separately. We have to roster the system. So because we have two different systems, we have Moodle, which is the assessment platform, and we have Inform, which is our reporting platform. Both of those systems have to get rostered separately, and we have to do those manually. The other thing with the Moodle platform that we're using is all of the items that students take are fixed response items, and there are 4 answer choices, and those are all multiple choice. And then, of course, because it's our server, our install, we are responsible for all the server and database maintenance. And one of the major weaknesses is that the data collection system, which is Moodle, and the data reporting system, which is Inform, are 2 completely separate systems. There's no link between them. And so what happens is results have to be manually pulled out of the Moodle database. There's a lot of manipulation that happens outside of that database and then manually uploaded into the Inform system for reporting. So really the only connection between them is my computer that I'm talking into right now. And it's only used for district level assessments. So we don't, in Moodle, while there might be some capability, it's not a great resource to use to get down into the classroom level. So that's why we're going to ask you tonight to approve a new assessment and data reporting platform, which is called Illuminate. If you could hit the next, sir. And this is a single data collection and reporting engine. So there is no transfer of data from one system to another. That goes through my computer. We don't host it internally, so we don't have to worry about all of the logistics with poking holes in our firewall and having security certificates. There is an auto roster option, which we will employ immediately if it is approved, so that we don't have to manually roster 2 different systems. And another thing I really like about the system is it has a variety of different item types. Right now, we're just limited to multiple choice items, which I like on one hand, but on the other hand, the schools that are assessing with the state assessment online, those students are going to be experiencing items that are not just multiple choice. They're interactive and students are going to have to manipulate things on screen. So we'd like them to also get used to doing that. The item bank in this particular system, the numbers have varied, but the last figure I heard from Amy was about 72,000 items across math, reading, writing, science, and even into the arts and social studies and history. They have pre-made assessments, so we wouldn't have to completely rebuild everything. They have tons of built-in reporting features, and over 200. I don't know that we'd ever use all of them, but there's a lot of fun ones. And then I also have built-in analyses and supplementary reporting features, which are fun because we have to do all those things outside of our current systems. I don't know everything about how those analyses work, and I would probably insist on doing my own analyses, of course, at least in the beginning. And it has capability to go all the way from overall district down into the classroom. And I think especially the last 5 years or so with the movement of CFAs and teacher created assessments, this is going to be a really big resource for teachers to use to start creating those standardized formative assessments and classroom assessments across the district. Next. So that's really it. What I'm going to do now, just for the audio logistics, is I'll mute myself and I'll wait for questions. We just wanted to give you that background to get started.
I will open the floor for questions for Mr. Owen.
I have a question on slide 11. The second to the bottom bullet, it's separate collection and reporting systems. Is this two separate costs?
No, Member Dowling, no, those are, my apologies. Member Dowling, no, that's actually the current system that we're using is a separate collection and reporting system. We have Moodle and we have Inform currently. The new system, Illuminate, is not separate. That is actually a self-contained collection and reporting system all in one. Does that make sense?
And the second question would be the cost for training, and when would this training take place for our teachers?
Well, that part hasn't actually been planned in detail yet. However, if it is approved, the first thing we would start doing this month would be to start getting the system set up. And then we'd start trying to get data into the system by the end of the school year. Teacher training would have to start taking place into the summer. But the idea is that this
Are you
would
done,
be
Dr. Dowling? Or at least
Yeah,
I
for
have.
now.
Okay, hi, Brian, it's Jeremy Honak. I hope you're feeling better or good or whatever. What is rostering? Is that sort of setting it up for a particular test for a particular grade in class, or what is rostering?
Hi, Member Honak. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Rostering is setting it up in terms of making sure the students, the classes, the teachers, and the schools and the grades are in the system so that not only can the students log in and test, that also the teachers can log in and look at the student results. So
Understand. Okay, I understand that. How old is the Moodle system how long has that been in place?
that has been in place now since the 2010-2011 school year. So this is the 12th year that system has been in place.
Okay, and with the new system, why does synergy needed? What is synergy? I'm not familiar with that.
Synergy is our student information system. So Synergy is where we get all of our teacher, class, course, student relationships from in order to roster the systems.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you. And then and then what is the cost of Illuminate? Just the initial, for what is it, either 1 year, 2 year package or something like that?
It will be annual, and it will be close to $90,000 a year. The first year will be a little bit more for implementation fees, but each year annually, I believe, Roger, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's about $88,000.
Okay, and
January and June, and then it'd be approximately 91,000 per year for 3 years after that.
Per year for 3 years. Okay, thank you.
If I may interject right there, in addition to that, we will be saving some money by no longer using Inform. Is that correct, Mr. Spivey?
So we could currently pay about 45,000 per year. So we would save that cost. So it would be an additional 45,000 for the enrollment.
What are we paying the 45,000 for now? I thought the Moodle was free.
That's the two systems that work together.
Okay. Oh, okay. So the net cost of going to Illuminate would be approximately 45,000 per year. Okay. And then I've got one more question, I think. What other packages are there out there that seems like 2011 was eons ago? So are there other like open source things, or it seems like there would be a lot of other people that would be having the same situation?
There are a lot of other systems out there, and I'm on just a district or a statewide email chain that we talk about this stuff all the time. What are districts using? And in terms of open source, Litchfield is the only district that I know of that has been using something that is free that we've created over the last 10, 11 years that we've built. Everyone else is on some kind of a different platform. A lot of them do similar things. There's one of the major ones out there that people have been using for a long time, ATI, Galileo. I looked at something called ClearSight when we were with the Easy Merit company. I looked at School City before the merge. This is now School City, but it's School City with merging with 3 or 4 other vendors.
Okay, so sorry. So I'm gonna assume that you've shopped around, looked at it, and this is probably the best bang for the buck. I think I answered the question. You don't even have to answer.
Yeah, yes, actually, yeah, this wasn't an overnight decision by any means. In fact, we have been talking about moving to a hosted platform for probably about 6 years or so. And it's a priority 1 year, and then we've had a lot of leadership changes over the last 5 or 6 years or so. That just priorities have come and gone, and we've looked at some things and then have kind of dropped, and then other priorities have started. So this is a conversation that's happened for several years now.
Thank you. That's good for me.
Board Member Clymer, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a clarification really, Brian, if you could. In the presentation, you mentioned that there is sort of district-wide accessibility from obviously district admin level and things you would produce maybe for the board at a high level, and then all the way down into the classroom. So I just want to clarify, teachers will have access to this program to pull individual data for their students in classrooms, all the way up to board level or admin level access.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, I mean, even the current system has that capability. What would be different about this Illuminate platform is that the teachers themselves, once we get there, of course, we'll have some time to get this implemented and everybody to learn how to use the system and how to manage it. But once we get there, the teachers themselves will be able to create their own assessments. And I think that's what is going to be very powerful at the classroom level. Now, when they get together and create their teacher-made assessments, there's a bank there that once we sort of set aside our secure district items so that they can't use those, there will be a bank of tens of thousands of items for them to choose from, instead of spending as much time as they do creating their own assessments.
Great, thank you very much.
That makes me think of another question. does this have the potential that a teacher could use it kind of as a teaching aid, to just kind of make up little challenges and tests for their own class?
Yes, it definitely does. Now, I don't know every single piece of the system, so I certainly am not an expert on it because I don't have it in my hands yet. But yes, I've been through 3 different demos with this particular vendor, and there are so many different options that teachers can use in the classroom, from putting something up on the board and having kids click something on a computer, to printing out assessments and then having them scanned in and uploaded for kids to do multiple choice on the computer. There's a ton of different options. I don't know all of them for sure.
Thank you.
Board Member Zaidama, do you have any questions?
No, you guys got them all.
I do have one question, Mr. Owen. Could you just summarize for me who was involved in this decision-making process and what that feedback was that you received from district administration and the various campuses?
Yeah, definitely, Madam President. So what we did was we convened what we considered the implementation team. So this is going to be the team that sort of is the leadership team during the implementation for this. We had, of course, some district representation, me, of course, Gina, Sarah Pearson. We had a couple principals. We had DLA principal Marlene Capristo, Barbara Roby principal, Amanda Costa. We had a couple instructional coaches, middle school instructional coach. We had a special ed instructional coach, a K-8 instructional coach, assistant principal, Stacy Shannon, of course, the Superintendent Gunning was part of this. Our Director of Education Technology was part of this, Laura Combs. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anybody. I think that is our sort of the implementation leadership team that has been involved and has gone through demos. And a couple of those folks have used the system in previous districts. So they're great resources because they have seen it, they've used it.
Can I follow up on that question?
Sure.
That's a great question. So back to what Dr. Dowling was saying, if these, it seems to me that, is it possible that the leads can kind of figure out a way that the training to teachers could be done without teachers having to go do an outside thing where they're probably going to be learning more than they need to know? So I'm just wondering, is there a way to mitigate or avoid training costs from an outside vendor?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't really know how much training costs that will incur. Actually, probably for me, I will, as the system administrator, or there'll be a small team of us that I know will do a 3-hour training with them as system administrators. But it's a train the trainer model. We could pay them to come out to train, but right now that's not the plan at all. The plan would be that we would accept training and then we would be the trainers for the district afterward. So they mainly operate on a train the trainer kind of a.
So largely inside training.
Yes, I don't foresee a lot.
Largely inside training is what it would be.
Oh, inside, yes. I don't foresee a lot of external training for our in-house people.
Excellent.
I don't have any other questions, but I would like to make a couple of comments. I am very excited that if this is approved, the implementation of this system will decrease our manual processes and allow not only Mr. Owen's time to be freed up to actually analyze and utilize the data rather than create and compile the data, but also our instructional coaches and our teachers. I believe the timely access to the data will provide student feedback and timeliness in reteaching. That is something we do not have a parallel for today. So this is a system that we've had in place, the current system that we've had in place for a long time. And I believe it's outdated, and that this new data system will get us more up to speed and highly increase the timing, and hopefully then give the teachers fewer manual tasks that they have to do to free up their time to actually teach. And to attach to that, I'm going to give a quote from James Clear, and you're probably going to hear me say this at every meeting going forward this year. He says, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." And this system, our current system, I believe, is outdated, and I'm super excited that we're updating this system and making these enhancements for our teachers and our students. The approval of the purchase of this Illuminate system will be in the consent agenda under item 6S. If that is approved, then we will go forward with this. Are there any other board member questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I second what Board President Kim Moran said, and I go further with it. I'm extremely excited about it as being I see a vast potential as being an incredible tool in the classroom. I've seen a paradigm where you set goals for kids that are very high, and then you just repeatedly give them the same test, and then and so there's a big reward, you know, when they finally make it. And even the kids that have difficulty doing it, the other people in the class kind of want to cheer them on. It sets up the potential, I believe, for a very valuable paradigm of achievement and rewards for achievement. So I'm maybe I'm a little too dreamy about it, but I think I think I get a good picture that the potential of this thing is very vast, and I think I'm kind of really excited to see that it could make dramatic differences in academics, which I think I hope everybody here is passionately for.
Excellent points, Mr. Honak. Thank you for your feedback. Again, this item is information only. If there are no other comments, we will move on in our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Owen, for the presentation and the information. Very useful.
Thank you so much.
The next item on our agenda is item 4A, which is the acknowledgement of public requests to speak and the opportunity for public comment. I will read the disclaimer for public comment, and then I will call our speakers to the podium. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and when you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. Our first public comment tonight will be from Ms. Cynthia Schwartz.
President Moran and governing board members. On January 12th, 2021, the governing board agenda included a conscious discipline brain smart start. It included an activity to commit, to unite, and a relaxation activity. Ex-President Clymer commented about conscious discipline, saying that it is, quote, something that is our teachers and our students do every day. It's been in the district for 5 to 6 years. During 2021, there have been many comments about conscious discipline. Teachers and staff are trained, and one administrator has become a certified instructor. It appears that conscious discipline is a key resource. I have submitted a public request to understand the finances needed to support the program and how much the program is costing the district. Getting back to conscious discipline, the vendor's website has 4 key outcomes. 2 are challenging to quantify or measure: improve school culture and healthier social emotional skills. But there are 2 key outcomes that can be measured: decreased discipline referrals, and they say on their website that schools will see significant decreases in problem behaviors and discipline referrals. There's also a key outcome is increased academic performance. To quote their website, an outcome is more willingness plus more teaching time results in soaring academics, and I emphasize their words, soaring academics. On August 9th, 2021, the board approved an edited version of the LASD equity statement. There's a section, finances, resources. It says, optimize student success by evaluating and continually improving the effectiveness and efficiency of all resources. I emphasize evaluate, recognizing that conscious discipline is an integral part of the school day for students, teachers, and administrators. Excuse me. I am suggesting that the governing board conduct an evaluation of this program, a program that has been in the district for 5 to 6 years, and determine if this resource is producing the key outcomes described by the vendor. The board might be curious to know if a 5-year and continuing investment in conscious discipline is yielding the outcomes publicized on their website by the vendor, specifically soaring academics and decreased discipline referrals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Next to the podium is Mr. Finnegan, Mike Finnegan.
As a continuation, why do you use social emotional learning in conscious discipline? Is the training mandatory? Do your evaluation results fall under HIPAA guidelines since they are not academic? Do they get an SEL grade? 20 years ago, if a child was defiant, disrespectful, and talked back to teachers, the teacher would summon the parents and say, your child is rude. You need to talk to your child what is expected at school. The responsibility is with the family. Today, the school counselor and teachers are more likely to say something like, your child's behavior may meet criteria for an oppositional defiant disorder. Have you thought of having him evaluated? Now the responsibility shifts from the parents to the medical, psychological, industrial complex or school districts who put controversial and unproven theories like conscious discipline and SEL in place. Instead of a behavior meriting punishment and correction, we now have psychiatric symptoms that require brain smart modeling techniques. In 2016, Sarah Pearson approved and Megan Duplain implemented a 5-year conscious discipline transformation plan. Why do all students require SEL assessments? Many students have no behavioral problems, they just want to learn. Where is the LASD 79 quantitative data to support the program since 2016? You should occasionally look at the results. If you can't measure them, you can't manage them. For instance, is academics soaring, absenteeism improving, and bullying declining? What is your return on investment? And more importantly, the opportunity costs, that is, time taken away from the teachers teaching academics to participate in SEL programs. The size and emphasis on the conscious discipline program demands its own budget code for accounting and transparency purposes, not buried in a Title I and Title IV category. Why does the public school system need the other 14+ SEL programs such as Kagan, Cassell, UCRU, Crisis Prevention Institute, your partnership with Touchstone Behavioral Health Service Consultants? Is it because they can afford them? I'm beginning to think that the LASD student population of 11,500 students is some sort of one flew over the cuckoo's nest. On November 30th, 2021, Mrs. Gunning stated teachers are asked to do a lot more in their day than they have time for. This is not good. This month, School Superintendent Steve Watson is concerned and will hold a meeting to discuss teacher stress mitigation strategies because teachers are stressed, burned out, and increasingly dissatisfied with their jobs. To alleviate this problem, he's suggesting suspending new initiatives, relaxing professional development schedules, and pulling back on time on task expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. Next, we will hear from Tanya Gehring.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Tanya Gehring. I am the lead registrar for LASD and have been with the district for 20 years. I feel as if 20 years should be a cause for celebration, but today I come before the board, my coworkers, and community members with a heavy heart to ask you to reconsider raises for registrars, office managers, and any other classified personnel that did not receive a raise in pay this month. I am truly happy for those who did receive a raise, 5% for minimum wage earners. But I ask you to consider the jobs that don't seem hard to fill because of the loyalty and commitment we have to our students, parents, certified staff, and community. Registrars alone, and I brought several of them with me tonight, represent 200 years of frontline Litchfield Elementary School District service. We sell this district to the public with excellent customer service skills and knowledge of our communities. While this job doesn't require a degree, many of us have college degrees, credits, or business school training. We apply our experiences to provide parents with guidance and assurance that we care about their children's safety and education. We welcome students each day, sometimes before the gates open or after school offices close because buses are not running and parents are unable to find extended day space. Understanding that parents need to work and teachers need to prep. We volunteer this time. We fill in for attendance clerks who were hard to come by this year, completing 2 roles in a day while prioritizing what needs to get done. I can tell you that our priority was, is, and will always be people over the paper that accumulates. We help teachers who feel overwhelmed by making copies, calling parents to make sure they get important messages, or simply taking a moment to be present with a teacher who needs to know they're being heard. In 20 years, I have personally taken a cut in pay for a job with more responsibility. I have not received a raise some years due to budget shortfalls. I have had my work days cut and my personal day accumulation reduced. Yes, registrars seem to still be one of those areas that continue to come up for cutting back or not getting a raise. At least 3 different classroom behaviors have been in place during the 20 years. The current conscious discipline focuses on family and being safe to be ready to learn at a maximum potential. I feel that decisions the district and board have made in recent months make it difficult for me and many of the classified team to feel safe and valued as part of the district family. I'm not at my maximum potential some days. I feel a connection to our school families, and many of our registrars feel connected to the schools that value and recognize what classified staff contribute. I do ask that I can continue, please. Ultimately, they are not able to—
I'm sorry, Ms. Gehring, your time is up. Thank you for your comments.
Ultimately, they're not able to help us feel a sense of worth
sorry,
that comes
Ms.
with
Gehring.
the financial
Your 3
compensation.
minutes are over. Thank you for your comments.
If you'd like to know more, I'm at Verado Elementary, or you can ask any of the registrars that came with me.
Next, we will hear from Gabrielle Larson.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Larson. You might recognize me. My mom just got her national boards and she was just recognized. I'm her daughter. I am 18 and I'm currently at ASU. I'm a freshman. And I just wanted to bring attention today to the respect that teachers get and how I feel like they deserve better. I went through all of my preschool through 8th grade at LESD, and I've had some very impactful people in my life who are in positions of authority. One of them is Dr. Pearson. She was my principal in elementary school, and these people really influenced my life. I'm a bio major now. I'm on a pre-med track, and I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that med school has about a 3% acceptance rate. The majority of people who go to med school get through it. And national board certification also has about a 3% pass rate. And I feel that there's people in our district who have that certification, not just my mother. It's not about that. It's about everyone in the district who have these high credentials, whether that be master's or doctoral degrees, that we don't treat in the same way that we treat medical professionals. We don't treat them with the same respect. And there is something innately wrong with that we need to address in the leadership positions within the district and within the community at large. And I just wanted to make note of that. So thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you for your comments. That is the final request we have for public participation. The next item on our agenda is item 5A, which is the consent agenda. I will open up the floor for any comments or discussion on the current items in the consent agenda.
I would like to discuss item 6D, 6H, 6J.
I'm sorry, Dr. Dowling, was your first item 6B as in boy or D as in David?
D as in Delta.
D as in Delta. I'm not a pilot, but I'll get on board. Okay, so that was item 6D, 6H, and 6J. Would you like to pull these items from the agenda, or do you just have comment or discussion on these items?
I just have a couple quick questions. Is that okay?
Yes, if it's question and discussion only and you do not want to pull them off, it's fine to leave them on there. We can then determine that later. Before you ask your questions, are there any other board members who have items on the consent agenda that they would like to discuss? Yes, Mr. Honak.
I would like to have 6N as in November removed. I believe that's the one about the employment contract language. And I would like that pulled out.
Okay.
For discussion and as a separate treated, voted separately.
Okay, we will pull item 6N from the consent agenda and discuss that separately.
And I did want to also deal with 7D, but that's not on that's not what we're talking about right now, right?
Correct. We are
Okay.
on item 6, the consent agenda items.
Thank you. Then I'm good.
Board Member Clymer or Board Member Zeidema, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to pull off the consent. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Dowling, let's go through in order and address your questions. You have a question on item 6D, which is the monthly financial reports.
Yes, on the fund, the IDEA fund, 220. The budget is $1.5 million approximately. I'm not clear on whether that's M&O funding or is that from the SPED funding, from the feds, from the weights, or what is it?
And which item is that?
It's item D. If you look at under the fund fund op description, it would be the fund
The monthly financial reports.
220 idea.
220 idea, got it.
Dr. Delling, Wendy Qualls is not with us tonight. She's at home. So I'm going to do my best to answer that one. But the idea is special ed funding,
Right.
but the majority of our IDEA funding goes into M&O to pay for staffing, the majority of it.
Then the question I have is, I'd like to know how many staff we have who are funded through IDEA,
Okay.
how many are through M&O, the district M&O budget, and how many come directly from your IDEA funds?
Dr. Dowling, is that information that you need to make this decision and approval tonight, or is that information that you're requesting at a later date?
At a later date.
Thank you.
I'd like to have a breakdown on per individual staff position. Is it M&O or is it IDEA funds?
Thank you. Superintendent Gunning took down those notes and we'll get that information for you. Dr. Dowling, item 6H, which is certified personnel resignation, release of contract, retirement, and non-renewals. You have a question on that item.
Yes. 6. Okay, that is the certified, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
I noticed that we've got two people, two teachers that are retiring. One of them had 35 years of teaching total, and 21 of those years were in Litchfield Elementary. Another teacher was wrapping up 45 years total as a teacher, and at least 9 here in Litchfield Elementary. I want to make sure we recognize people like that. Anybody that can do that after about 25 years, I have pretty much had enough. And both of those ladies had a heck of a lot more than I did. And I want to make sure that they're recognized by the board at some point in time.
Thank you, Dr. Dowling. We actually celebrate all of our retirees in May. So we'll have a nice celebration with the governing board that you'll get to celebrate each of them and their families.
Good, thank you.
And then finally, Dr. Dowling, you requested to ask a question on item 6J, which is classified personnel resignation and termination.
Yes, we do it somewhat with the certified positions on the reason they're leaving. I would like to see the reason that the classified people are leaving. You can condense it down to 5 or 6 or 7 reasons. Could be as much as more money elsewhere. I hate my boss, whatever it is. And so we can get a handle on where are they going? Going to stay home, going to retire, have a better job working in a warehouse, Amazon warehouse, who knows? I just would like to have an idea on why they're leaving. And then at some point, perhaps every 6 months, have a summation given to us. Doesn't have to be an open meeting, just an idea of what's going on as far as people leaving.
Thank you, Dr. Dowling. I do have 2 items just that I would like to comment on that are in the consent agenda. The first being item 6K, which is the supplementary contracts and wages for 21-22. I would like to say and call out for the knowledge of those who are not aware that I am very pleased to see the $1,250 one-time payouts from the classroom site fund to our certified teachers. And in addition, the $500 retention stipends that were provided to other employees. I know that our teachers and staff will put these much-deserved funds to good use. And I would like to thank you all for your continued dedication to the students of the Litchfield Elementary School District. In addition, for item 6Q, I would like to provide a point of clarification. Item 6Q is the approval of the 2022-2023 school year calendar that was discussed in detail at the previous board meeting. My point of clarification regarding this discussion is that we, the board, I will speak for the board in this case, we, the board, are very supportive of teachers and understand the impact of stress and burnout that you are currently experiencing. The proposed additional 2 hours of PD that was discussed at the last meeting was a Band-Aid and not a solution to this problem. So I would like to request the administration examine the systems of support and re-examine our practices. To reiterate what Steve Watson is discussing as well, our meetings, our requirements, and time-consuming tasks, if we can examine those and try to improve the underlying systems in place to bring real relief to teachers. In addition, looking at innovative solutions, perhaps we need to hire more district substitutes. I know we are in the process, that's part of what's in our consent agenda tonight. I'm hiring 2 of our student teachers to then come on and be substitutes to help with that burden. Or potentially adding contract days with pay to maintain the level of teacher-led classroom instruction time and allow for planning and prep and PD for our teachers. I don't have all the solutions, but I am confident that together we can come up with an innovative and meaningful solution to the problem of teacher burnout. With that, I will move to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 6N as presented.
Before you, I apologize. I had one additional question.
Yes.
The motion can still be on the floor. I just have one quick question. And as I was flipping through, I realized it was in this section and not the last. On item 6O, it's a approval for an RFP for after-school clubs and tutoring. I think it's probably for Superintendent Gunning. I don't know. You can put it to whoever else. I know that we were initially doing the tutoring program with teachers in the district and offering them some additional pay and some additional opportunities and things like that to do that. Is that still what's happening? Does that change? Does this change that, or is there a difference in that program?
No, thank you, Board Member Clymer. That still exists. So we have written into ESSER the tutoring for our teachers to provide and get paid for. However, we also would like to add some clubs for socialization and different things. And we know our teachers are at max capacity. So we'd like to go out to see what other companies could provide that support for us. So that's what we're doing.
Okay. In addition to
What
we're doing. Great. I apologize for the interruption for the motion.
No problem. Motion on the floor is to approve the consent agenda minus item 6N.
I second.
Board Member Zaidama seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, we will now address the one item that was removed from the consent agenda, which was item 6N, the employment contract language and work agreement language for the 2022-2023 school year. Mr. Honak, you requested to pull this off the agenda. You may have the floor.
Thank you very much. So there excuse me, 3 issues, but the main one I want to start with is it's item 18, which is the performance pay and this, I believe the performance pay is in all of the contracts, but it may be not number 18 in some of them. I agree with President Kim Moran about the being a good thing that, you know, that teachers got rewarded for certain things. And definitely our teachers need to be cherished and helped. They're abused, and that I'm 100% for. So as far as performance pay, I think that's fine. And stipends is fine. uh, with one huge exception. I don't think there should be any stipends for paying for training for outside vendors. And I think that sounds broad, but I think that's where we've kind of gotten off the track where we decide we need conscious discipline or we need training. And honestly, I think that if we have to, the members of the public have said this numerous times, if we have to train teachers how to use a math program or Wonders or I don't know what, any one of these outside vendor curriculum or curricula, I guess, it's ridiculous. They should know how to teach. That's why they're hired. And if we are paying an outside vendor, there's nothing wrong with having a profit motive, but we're not doing rocket science here. We're trying to teach math and things that were done without outside vendors and all this fancy rigmarole. And one of the things that is used, I've in my family have used it. My son, who has done really well, is now in med school, whatever, is Khan Academy. And I've seen over and over people say that when COVID happened, it went to the home learning and that just kind of failed, and they just kind of threw up their hands and went, okay, I don't want my kid to turn out to be not learn anything. And so they turned to Khan Academy. All we need to do for the training is tell the teachers to log into www.khanacademy.com. And all the teachers have to do is tell their students to log into www.khanacademy.com. They have whole classroom things prepackaged set up for teachers to use. It's in, I may be a little off on my statistics. I think it's translated into 27 languages. It's won more awards than anything. It's totally free, totally funded, other than people that just feel like they want to send them money. But believe me, there are people that have written out checks for $5 million or whatever for one reason, because it's probably the best educational tool that's going on. And if you give a child, you get them hooked on Khan Academy, you're not just teaching them 3rd grade, 4th grade through 8th grade, you're giving them a gift for life. Because after they graduate high school and they go through college, they're going to forget 80% of what they learned, calculus, this, that, or whatever. But one day is going to come along where they need to do some differential calculus or regression or something like that. And they're going to know, hey, no problem. I'm going to go back onto Khan Academy, and in 10 minutes, I'm going to see how to do it, be able to do what I need to do. This is a blessing to humanity, and to not be using it, it's free. And it is designed to be in a way that you don't need teachers to be taught it, because any parent, any kid can pretty much go on there and learn it themselves. If somebody can give me one reason why Khan Academy shouldn't be used, I would like to hear it, because I've never heard any downside of it. So that's just an example of why we don't need to be, as Steve Watson's survey showed, driving teachers to near suicide with training and 5 million billion things that they need to do. Teachers teach because they want to see kids learn. I really think almost all of them do, and I am 100% excited about the new program that Mr. Owen did, because of the potential it has. And so getting back to, I've been on the topic all the time, but I'm back to number 18. I would like that changed so that stipends cannot be used for outside vendors. Now, if something comes up that we really need to use it, we should address that on a per basis, but it's something that we shouldn't be doing here just as a normal procedure that, oh, we've got it set, because honestly, I've never been able to figure out where and when it was decided to send all this money to conscious discipline and this new 8th grade math curriculum. All I've heard from it is that it's horrible, that parents hate it. I honestly haven't said I've looked at it, but everybody looks at it and goes, it's a nightmare. And the strength of Khan Academy is math. That's where they really started in, but now they really have for elementary school, they've got every topic in there. So that's what I would like to see for number 2 and number 17. I want to revisit briefly. There's no organization in the world that does not set requirements for employees. And item number 2 says teacher agrees to teach such grades or subjects as teacher may be assigned to teach and perform such other duties as may be assigned. There's no performance built into that. It's absurd. And I had asked on March 3rd for just the simple change that the teacher will strive to improve academics. It's just setting a goal to strive to improve academics so that they know when they sign this contract that is something that they're required to try to do. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, maybe there's this circumstance and that circumstance, but that should be a requirement for them to give it their best effort. So I would like the verbiage to be changed for that. I have the exact language that from before and and my final change is paragraph 17, which is something, a relic from the 60s or 50s when Black people weren't allowed to use white people drinking fountains. And we already have that in place. Now we have the Civil Rights Act. We have wonderful people that have set the benchmark, such as Dr. Martin Luther King, who I think that all Americans should idolize for his goal for his kids to learn and the kind of world that we should be training kids to create when we're gone. And so we need, we're actually have gone so far now that colleges are segregating. They have to have spaces for, different races and cultures and different treatment and whatever. That's utterly abhorrent to what our country stands for. And so number 17 needs to be revised, that teachers cannot teach horrible things such that if your skin is this color, you're an oppressor, and if your skin is this color, you're a victim. That is child abuse. It needs to be prohibited because unfortunately there are a whole lot of people around that seem to think they're doing some sort of wonderful social engineering, and they're sadly hugely misinformed, and they're creating harm to our culture and child abuse to our kids. And by the way, our kids are, studies are showing that the overall IQ is decreasing. How is that possible when every kid is holding in their pocket or has access to more knowledge than any time in the existence of humanity? So that's what the changes I would like. I think this should be put off to another date if we need to do the verbiage correctly in a way or have it discussed. But as it is right now is so wrong.
Thank you for your feedback, Board Member Honak. Board Member Clymer, do you have any feedback on that? I think what probably should happen is I would like to hear from each board member if you would agree or disagree with the proposed changes, and then I will entertain a motion.
Sure. I don't think that the contract is the correct place to discuss stipends from outside vendors. Whether we want to have that conversation or not doesn't belong in this context, I don't think. I don't think it's smart of us to live in a vacuum and not have outside influences on us. We are an education organization that's always growing, and limiting ourselves to only training ourselves, I think defeats the purpose of being an education organization. Although I disagree with that, I just don't think that the contract is the place for it. I think if we want to have that conversation in policy or something, we do that separately. I don't think this is the right context for that. In terms of number 17, teacher shall not discriminate against any employee. I think the verbiage is fine as it is. I don't agree with the changes that have been submitted there. In terms of number 2, I believe the comment was adding something about striving for academic excellence. I don't agree with that as a concept. I think all teachers strive for academic excellence, or they wouldn't have chosen this as a profession to teach children. I don't think that putting that in a contract when that is not a tangible thing that you can say teachers are doing or not doing, that is an emotion within them if they're striving for that. So I don't disagree with the idea. I just, again, don't think that the contract is the place for that, because I'm not sure how we would hold them accountable to that necessarily, what tangible things we would ask them to do to show they are doing that. So.
Thank you. Board Member Dowling, do you have any additional comments?
To make it clear, we're just talking about which contract specifically? It's just the certified teacher contracts that we've been looking at, right?
Well, I believe Mr. Honak would like to apply these 3 principles to any of these contracts listed that might have those or similar verbiage in those contracts. So really the question being proposed now is, do you support those changes? Is there enough board support for those changes that we would table this and come back to it? Or do we approve these as presented?
And I just could say that I don't think that it doesn't apply to all the contracts. It really the one is about teachers. I think that the performance pay is in some of the other contracts, and maybe these changes are applicable or not. I don't know. I don't think that the outside training is necessary because right now it's just sort of free reign to go say we're going to contract with a vendor, and then all of a sudden we've got all these costs of recurring training and stuff like that, which is problematical for children.
Dr. Dowling, you have the floor.
Well, what number was the
Teachers.
training?
Yeah, wait, just to clarify before we move on, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the regular certified teacher contract is not here. Is that correct?
It is. It's the 2022 certified teacher notice of non-renewal is in parentheses, but
Notice of
it's the
non-renewal.
certified
Okay.
contract.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm looking at
So-
the right one. Okay.
Number 2 was one of the items that Board Member Honak had mentioned. Number 2 is the authority for the district to place a teacher as needed on whichever grade level needed. Basically, it's that authority to move people based on need or if there is a increase or reduction in student attendance. And then I believe the next item was item 17. If you went down to 17. You scroll
Yes,
down.
which
I
is
know
the
it's-
discrimination, non-discrimination clause.
And then it was 18, which is the one just following that mentions the stipends.
So really, this contract is giving us the ability to pay teacher stipends. It does not outline what those stipends would be for. So to Board Member Clymer's point, this is really not the place to dictate or outline what the stipends are for. This just allows us to pay them stipends as authorized by the governing board.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with it's based upon their authorization of the governing board. I'm not seeing an issue with that. As far as number 17, the only thing I would maybe suggest is that you just have it end it where it says, teachers shall not discriminate against any employee, student, parent, contractor, or other member of the public, period. That pretty much says it all, if you're going to leave this in.
I think that with you, if you do not set a goal, and the problem is with the whole district, there's no goal, there's no acknowledgement that academics are not where they should be, and that the main goal of this whole district should be to improve academics. Everything else is secondary, and it's not even a stated goal of the district. It's humiliating. I don't know how anybody.
But we're talking about the teacher contracts. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
I don't, whether we agree or disagree on the goals of the district is, do we need to update the teacher and all of these other contracts to reflect that?
And the teacher should be, every teacher, we should not be hiring a teacher. HR should ask every teacher a question. Will you commit to improving our academics? They're not what they should be. And that teacher should say yes. And it should be in a contract. It should be. You know, you can't drive a bus. You can't do anything. A work contract puts all kinds of stuff in it. I've read this contract. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And to sit here and say, oh, we don't need it, and it's the way it's been, and whatever. Well, okay, it's the way it's been. And look what's happened. Our academics are down in the dumpster. And I'm telling you, 29%, only 29% of eighth graders, the final product of Litchfield Elementary School District, only 29% of it can do math.
Thank you for your
Hello,
feedback.
anybody here? Is anybody here? Is
Thank you for
anybody
your
awake?
feedback, Mr. Honak. I would
What?
like to hear from Board Member Zaidama, please.
Just a quick comment. We have a strategic plan, and in it, what we believe the very first thing is academic excellence. So therefore, our strategic plan that was created by the community, by our staff, by our students, by our board, the number one thing for what we believe is in academic excellence, to connect, educate, and empower our LESD family and communities. So academic excellence and educating our students is exactly why we are here. The teacher contract, we had this discussion about the section you wanted to change for adding the strive for academic excellence last year, and based on input from our attorney at that time, we should not make that change. Also, I don't agree with putting anything about the stipends in there, because all, like Superintendent Gunning said, and like we've discussed, the stipends, it merely says that we are able to pay stipends, which we do for a lot of different things, not just for outside training. So we need to have that in the contract that we are able to pay those stipends. And I don't think we need to make any changes as well to number 17.
Well, I have a question.
agree.
If academic excellence is in our goals and it's always been there, I have a question. If only 29% of the final product going out of the door are eighth graders, if only 29% of them know how to do math, is that your definition of excellence? Is that excellence? Because your goal's not working. But I'll let you answer the question. Explain to me how that is excellence, Ms. Seidema.
Well, I would actually like the opportunity to answer that question, which I will reiterate the quote that I said earlier, which is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. We have systems that need improvement, and that is the job of this board, to provide guidance to the district on which systems they need to improve based on the outcomes. I do not support these changes to the contracts, as you have suggested, Board Member Honak. I will move to approve the employment contract language and work agreement language
Well,
for the
I'm gonna make one more-
2022-2023
I want to
school year
make
as
one more
presented.
comment. I'm going to make one more comment. Maybe we need to change the system of how we hire teachers and the system of what we require of our teachers. Maybe that's a systemic change. And it's right here, number 2 in this contract. So by your definition, that we should change number 2, because that's part of the system. It's how we hire and what we require of our teachers.
I second the motion.
Having a motion and a second on the floor, I will take the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
What is the motion?
The motion is to approve the employment contract language and work agreement language for 2022-2023 as presented originally.
I would agree that this contract is in need of some revision. However, I'll vote for this year, but I'd like to see a committee, a group to get together and revise this with the attorney if you have to, this contract. I think things have changed. How long has this contract been around?
The contract is reviewed by legal counsel every year.
Every
And
year?
any-
Has it, when's the last change that's been made to it?
They make minor updates annually based on legal, like new laws or regulations or guidance that come into play. So it does have tweaks usually annually.
It wasn't changed at all. They changed the date. They get a rubber stamp and they change the date, and that's it if there's some law. So
I'll vote to approve it, but I definitely would like to see a thorough relook at the contract as it's stated at some point moving forward here.
Yes, can I then interject and suggest that the contract discussion for the 2023-2024 school year be put on a future study session agenda to happen no later than November of the current year, so that we have time to work with the attorney and make any revisions before those would be needed to be approved for the following school year. Dr. Dowling, does that satisfy your request?
Yes, it does.
Wonderful.
And are we still voting?
Yes, I will now call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I vote nay, and I've been here 1 year, and I just want to know that on the record here, that again, the board has voted against improving academics. And they're
That
not
is not a true
improving,
statement,
and
and
they're
you do
not
not
going
have
to
the floor,
approve
Mr. Honak.
because the board
We
is
will now
not
move
for
on.
it. That's not a goal.
You do not have the floor, Mr. Honak.
I'm voting and I'm giving my reason for voting.
No.
Everybody else talked. Okay, thank you. I'll be quiet now. Thank you. Good job with the gavel.
Now moving on to agenda item 7, action, discussion, etc. First item is 7A, which is the Community Education Department Grant Funds Usage Proposal, which will be presented by Dr. Stair.
Good evening. Am I on? Are you able to hear me? Okay. Okay. We have a problem that we don't often have in education, that is money that we don't know what to do with it. And we know how to spend money and we know what our expenses are, but we would like your, excuse me, we would like your input on how best to proceed. If we could go to the next slide. And the next. Okay, so we have received the DES Child Care Stabilization Grant that started back in September. And the purpose of the grant, as they state, and I'll just read it, is to sustain Arizona's child care network by avoiding providers a consistent, reliable funding source to cover increased costs and help address challenges due to COVID-19. So we applied for this at 10 sites, and that's $10,000 per site per month. And that goes through May of 2023. Now, we won't receive all that money every month because we have to pay back the money during the summer when we're closed. So it won't add up to all those months of $10,000 every month, but we're certainly grateful for the money and glad that it's coming in. As all funding in education and all funding related to the government, they establish little pockets, and you can put the money in this pocket, and out of that pocket, you can only spend on these things. And these are allowable uses for this money. We can use it for staff payroll, benefits, and incentives. Certainly payroll is our primary category now. It's our largest expense. We can use it for staff training and professional development. utilities, facility maintenance and improvements, COVID-19 related expenses, and then mental health supports for staff and children. And I'll just add before we move on from that slide that we're fortunate to be in a school district. This grant is available to both district-run programs and commercial programs. And so we have buildings and we have air conditioners and the lights are on and those kind of things. And so we don't necessarily have to spend on some of those categories as much as outside providers would. All right, so sometimes grants are so onerous in their requirements that they're not worth the money, but that is not the case with this grant. The requirements are actually relatively small. We have to report every month on whether or not the money is being spent and how it's being spent. We have to keep record of the attendance of the kids who benefited from this for 5 years, which we do anyway. We have to pay back grant funds during closures, as I mentioned before. That's not the case during winter break and spring break and things like that. It's 2 weeks or more. And so that'll be this summer at 8 of the sites. 2 of the sites we won't have to pay back because we'll have camps running at them. So we'll get to keep that money. And then we have to spend all the grant funds by September 30th of 2023. And I think we'll be able to do that. So since my Caribbean vacation was not one of the allowable expenses, I'm making a couple proposals on how we can use this money. First of all, I'd like you to approve the use of grant funds for increasing work hours in certain categories and accompanying benefits for some preschool aides and extended day site leaders. Right now, site leaders, so I'll get to that. And then also approve the use of grant funds for providing temporary tuition reimbursement to community education employees. We're talking about college and trade school tuition. So that first proposal, increasing the hours. Currently preschool aides are 5.5 hours a day. I'm proposing that we increase them to 7 hours a day. Extended day site leaders are 7-hour-a-day employees. I'm proposing that we increase them from 8 hours a day. That's more impactful than it sounds because some benefits go along with making those increases. Part of the rationale behind this is preschool classes operate for 7 hours a day, but the aides only work 5.5 hours a day, which especially in our half-day programs, our AM/PM programs requires pulling in extended day people to fill in for the time that that preschool aide is not there, or if they go home earlier in the day, then we have to cover the last part of the day. It's not the best thing for kids. It's an awkward solution, and to be honest, it's been the cause of losing some of our extended day people. They didn't want to work in 2 different genres or move from one school to another midday or that kind of thing. Also, 7-hour employees are eligible for health insurance benefits. Currently, extended day site leaders work year round, but they don't accrue personal leave since they're not considered full-time. Their managers are full-time. And so we end up with a situation where, especially during summer vacation or summer break during our summer camp, the managers are scheduling and taking their vacation time, but site leaders just have to work on through because they don't have that vacation time. The expanded work schedule would be voluntary. There are a few who like those hours. They may be taking classes outside of their work time or have other things going on outside of work time, and they don't want additional hours. So we're not going to force that on them.
Before you go on, can I ask a
Sure.
quick question, or would you prefer we wait till the end?
Feel free.
Okay, so you're suggesting that increasing the preschool aides from 5.5 to 7 so that they're considered full-time and can receive the benefits. But then I heard you say the extended site leaders who are currently at 7, moving them to 8 because they don't receive those benefits. So is that 7 hours different, or?
I'm sorry if I said that 7 hours is full-time. It's not. 7 hours is not considered full-time.
Okay, so even the preschool aides moving from 5.5 to 7, they receive more hours, but they don't receive more benefits.
They would receive more benefits. That's part of the Obamacare. If you work over 35 hours a week, then you're entitled to health, or 30 hours a week, then you're entitled to healthcare benefits. They would be working 35.
I'm sorry, you're correct. I didn't mean healthcare benefits. I meant you're talking about the accruing the additional pay and leave and all of those benefits.
Yeah, that would only happen with the site leaders. The site leaders would be
that has to be 8 hours.
That has to be 8.
Not 7. Okay,
Yes.
that was the distinction. Thank you.
No, thank you for clarifying that. And then just one more consideration, changing site leaders. Work schedules to full-time would change them. It would change their work calendar to calendar A, which includes 16 paid holidays, the accrual of 9 personal days, and 12 vacation days per year. And then tuition reimbursement. We're proposing that we would temporarily, just for the length of the grant disbursement, we would reimburse tuition costs up to $90 per credit hour for community education department employees pursuing any level of college degree or certificate program. Part of the rationale behind this is that we are targeting in our hiring college-age kids, and they're in short supply. They're not applying. They're not coming around. Their schedule works very well with what we do, but they're not applying. And so we hope that this would help to attract more college-age employees and also to keep those. We like to be a pipeline for people to get into education. They start in our programs and they end up as teachers. And so we want to encourage that as well. And so the eligible employee must, and I'll just summarize this, they have to be working on a degree. They have to prove that they've passed the class. And then there's other things that the grant can be used for, and in certain cases is already being used for. Grant funds can be used to reimburse allowable program expenses all the way back to January of 2020, just before the COVID outbreak hit in earnest. It can be used for tuition stabilization with the dramatic increases in minimum wage and our overhead costs. The grant funds may postpone inevitable tuition increases. In fact, with the increase in minimum wage, we would definitely have to be coming to you for a wage increase, a tuition increase this year if it weren't for this grant. And it could be used to reduce program wait lists by hiring new employees as applicants become available. And again, we hope that these measures will help attract some of those applicants. And that would reduce our overhead enrollment ratio and increase profitability. You know, there's a certain economy of scale required to run the program. And right now, with very few kids in the program, those economies are cutting much more deeply into our balance. So the more kids we get into the program, the smaller percentage our operating costs become, and we become more viable. Strategic plan alignment, our pillar, certainly finances and resources figure into this. It allows us to meet operational costs while stabilizing tuition for our families and maintaining program safety and quality. And also the pillar of service. Our staff are served by providing hours and benefits they may need, and families are served by maintaining and possibly increasing program availability. And is it what's for best for kids? Currently, we have over 250 kids on wait lists. They're waiting for a spot in extended day, and a couple dozen on waiting lists for preschool as well. Staff recruitment and retention is crucial to reducing wait lists and ensuring program viability. You know, a lot of what we've done this year has attracted applicants. We've got a lot of new people, but they're leaving as fast as they're coming. In fact, they're leaving faster than they're coming because they can make more money just about anywhere. And so we're trying to make this as an attractive a position as possible. Financial impact, we don't anticipate any immediate negative financial impact simply because this is grant funding. This doesn't come out of our certainly out of district M&O, and it doesn't come out of our tuition. It does establish a fiscal cliff. We know that this money ends in May of 2023. We've got to pay it all out within a couple months after that. So when the grant funding ends, the employees would likely have to accept a reduction in hours, loss of benefits, all the things that we're asking you to add here, we would have to take away at that time. And program tuition would almost certainly have to increase after that date, if not before. It would impact up to 11 preschool aides. Certainly impact all the kids involved in those programs, preschool students and their families, extended day participants and their families, especially those who may be brought in from the wait list, and up to 9 extended day site leaders. The timeline would be, I think, ASAP. We would try to enact this as soon as possible if it's approved. We would be offering those hours to preschool aides and site leaders. The tuition reimbursement, we can inform employees immediately, but we wouldn't actually be paying out until they finish the classwork. They still have to pay for their credit hours right now, and then at the end of the semester, we pay back $90 per credit. So it would be late April, early May before we start paying those things out. I can tell you, you know, we discussed this with the extended day managers and said, what would you like to see us, you know, what would be our priority be? And this is one of the things that they really felt strongly about. They've talked to their people, how would you use this if it were available? And there are people who are already hanging on saying, if this is approved, I'm sticking around. And so it's already working as a retention tool, even though it hasn't even been approved or implemented yet. And that's me. Did you have any questions concerning any of the presentation or anything else?
I have a question about the tuition reimbursement. Is there a reason we wouldn't want to just have that be for those that are going into education? Since we are trying to pull people into education, and I've had conversations with Superintendent Gunning before about how I think that's one of the best ways for us to get that diversity we're looking for in our staff, is to start working from our lower level classified staff, not from the top necessarily. So is there a reason we wouldn't just look at that?
You bet. Yeah. And so I would have to divide it into some kind of distinct categories here. So with our extended day people, we're just trying to attract college kids, whatever they're going into. And so if they weren't going into education, we still need them. And so that as a recruiting tool, limiting it to education probably wouldn't do us much good. First of all, because the Stray Mountain Community College doesn't have an education program. They get their two-year degree and then they go into university for the education program. As far as preschool staff are concerned, they generally are going into education. However, for an associate's degree for preschool, there's already tuition funding available through the Arizona Early Childhood Workforce. And so we're not too worried about preschool staff using this for other degrees because they're already on the education track. And then the only other category would be maybe our managers or our office staff or things like that. And, for instance, one of our office ladies right now is studying business, and that helps us. She's an accountant, and she's studying business and accounting, and so that benefits us. And so, although I wouldn't be averse to saying, you're limited to certain categories of degrees, I think it naturally plays out so that they're studying what we need them to study anyway. Did I answer your question fully, or?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have one question. We're talking about the, what slide is that? Slide 11, I guess. The grant runs out at the end of 2023, next school year.
Yeah. Yes,
I was looking at the 301 funds, or the funds, the grant. The grant's already in a negative 31%.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Well, unless I'm reading this wrong, it shows that the preschool grant of $36,000, we're right now at a negative $11,254. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a different grant. That was a previous grant.
It's a different grant, not this grant.
That's correct.
Yeah, because it doesn't, $34,000 doesn't,
No. Mhm.
36,000.
The one he's talking about is this. Sure, yeah. So this is a newer grant, and there were previous grants through DES and other sources. So this is a new grant that started just this school year, and it started paying out in September. And so the accounting you're talking about would be, again, a previous grant. This grant started in September. It pays us to the tune of about $100,000 a month right now, all the way through May of 2023.
Yeah, that grant's not reflected anywhere on the total fund, budget funds.
I wouldn't know that.
Yes, Dr. Dowling, this is the DES Child Care Stabilization Grant that we've never received before. And this is going directly to community education to supplement or support or enhance our extended day programs and our tuition-based preschool.
Okay. Yeah, understood.
I have another question, a couple of questions for you.
All right.
On slide 7, you talk about the change to the calendar, because if we increase their hours, they're changed to a calendar. So my only question is now we're including 16 paid holidays, 9 personal days, and 12 vacation days, which they have more than earned. However, does that put us back in the exact same situation that we now have people out more than, right? Because we're giving them more hours, which they deserve, but then we're giving them more time to be away from the job, which then how are we going to fill in those gaps? So how do we do that?
It's a great question, and that is a complication. One thing that may mitigate that a little bit is, we have breaks built into our year. There's our winter break. There's a week before camp starts, between when school ends and camp starts, and then 2 weeks between when camp ends and school starts again. And they don't take those times off, because if they take them off, they're not getting paid. And so they would actually be able to take those times off and use their vacation time and personal days during that time. Rather than right now, they just take them whenever they want, because they know they're not getting paid for those days anyway. So it may actually serve to stabilize our workforce during the time when we actually have kids there. It's an unknown whether it will or not. And so that is a complication, and we hope that it works out well. And this is kind of an experimental thing. And the grant's giving us an opportunity to experiment with that. But it has often felt unfair that these people work year round. They watch their managers get vacation time, and they just, if they need a day off, we just say, tough luck, you're not going to get paid for it.
Right. Yeah. It affects their bottom line on a monthly basis.
Sure.
I think it's great. I mean, I think there's a lot of employers, not just in the Valley, but nationwide, that are beginning to offer tuition reimbursement. And we are not competitive, obviously, salary wise, but this is one element where we can be competitive. But my fear is that in the eligible employees must category, there's no requirement for them to stay with us for any period of time. So we're basically paying them to go to school, and then 3 months later they can go. So typically in a corporate environment, if you're getting tuition reimbursement, you're also signing a contract that says, I'm going to stay for 6 more months, I'm going to stay for a year, et cetera. I know this isn't the exact same situation, but for me, I am supportive of giving them benefits as much as we can and we can afford. I would like to see some stipulation there that says you're going to stay with us for a certain period of time and not get reimbursed in May and then leave for summer vacation and never come back. Because I think there's some responsibility there that comes with that benefit that we're able to give to them. So I'd like to see that added. I don't know what the appropriate time period would be, but I would like to see some level of commitment there that goes with the dollars associated. And then one other question on the, let's see, slide 11, when you said a recommendation, what's best for kids, obviously that's why we're all here. The first one is there's obviously 250 kids currently on the wait list. You said a couple dozen more for preschool. People will need them for different reasons throughout the year. How does this impact those wait lists? So, giving people more hours and stuff is great, but it doesn't, there's still only one person. We don't have enough adults for the number of kids that we need. So how does your recommendations address the wait list and helping that, if at all possible?
Thank you for asking that. In two ways. One, as a recruitment tool, we can only open wait lists. We can only, fulfill our wait lists if we can hire more people. And so we need a recruitment tool. We need something that'll draw people in and keep them here. On the other hand, it's that retention piece where, for instance, right now, we at various sites, we've hired all these high school kids recently, and we're great. They're getting in. We thought we can make some bigger groups now. And in the same time period, we've had 5 resignations. If we could have kept those people, then hiring all those high school kids would have allowed us to bring in people from the wait lists. And so it really is just about keeping people, hiring new people, but also keeping the people we've got. And so those two tools, hiring and retention, are the big thing here. As far as pulling people off of wait lists, we do occasionally get parents call and say, I'll come work for you for 4 hours a day if I can get my kids into the program. We had one of those call today. And so, but they often want more than we're offering, and not necessarily in pay, but they're going to school, or they are, involved in other things that this would help them with. So it may be able to recruit some of those people as well that really are just trying to do something for their own child, but it will benefit us as well in the process.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Stair, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on potentially adding a time frame for retention for those utilizing the tuition reimbursement program. I will say, Board Member Clymer, I think my thoughts on this are a little bit different in that because this is a special grant and we are in a particularly difficult time right now, as we've experienced with many other departments, of this pay range and this type of job being very difficult to fill. I I would be okay with leaving it as is, knowing that this is really hopefully a tool that will help get us past this COVID hump in the hiring with this particular range. But I would like to hear your thoughts, Dr. Stair.
I appreciate both of your perspective on that. And honestly, my concern with that was a completely different, maybe tangential question, and that is, how do you enforce it? These are not contracted positions. And so you can't write into the contract language, you're going to return this money if you leave, or I mean, how do we enforce basically a provision like that? If we pay out your college tuition and you leave the very next day, do we sue you? Do we egg your house? I mean, I don't know exactly how to enforce that. And so we just couldn't come up with a way to make sure that actually happened.
And I think that
It's
a
a fair
perk,
point. Thank you.
having a perk and then saying that it's conditional and it's one that they're going to get many, many months in the future, you might as well not give the perk, because people are just going to go, I'm never going to get it because of whatever. I don't know what. So I think it's a bad idea putting any strings on it. If you're talking about the $90, they should be just straight up.
One string we have talked about putting in, and I intend to, is if you have resigned and you're asking us to reimburse, we're not reimbursing. And so, you know, that especially at the end of a semester, very often their schedule's changing or they're moving or whatever, and they resign. If they're asking for tuition reimbursement after that point, we're saying, sorry, we're not. You're not our employee now, you know?
Yes, that makes sense, 100% to me. Are there any other board member questions or comments on this action item? Then I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to pass this.
I will second. Having a motion and a second, I will take the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries for the approval of grant funds as presented. Thank you, Dr. Stair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is 7B, which is the classified personnel employment position change with new employment agreement and salary exceptions. This is to be presented by Monica Sanders. Is that correct?
Monica is out today due to illness or due to a medical reason. So
Okay. So you will be
yes, I can
discussing this, Superintendent Gunning. Thank you.
So we had an item that had come up in the previous month where board members had additional questions. This was a position that we had posted back in November for the HR generalist, an additional position to add to staff. Interview process took place, a committee selected, and Principal Sarah Lewis was the selected candidate for this position. I know there were several questions. I believe that we've answered most of those questions.
Yes, my understanding is that obviously on this requested list, there are multiple people who are listed as classified new hires for January 2022 that are proposed. I did request that this be pulled off of the consent agenda to discuss that specific internal transfer. My primary question is the question that we consistently ask as board members, which is this internal transfer at this point in time in the best interest of students? I'm having a difficult time seeing that, being that we are proposing to take a Title I principal in the middle of a school year with the recovery or learning loss and recovery in the state that it is now, and putting them into a district position that is not a promotion, and pulling that integral member of this campus who is student-facing, teacher-facing, and family-facing, and putting them into a district position. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about the thought process and theory behind why this is in the best interest of students.
So the thought process behind this was to look at how could we support and sustain the campus in the move of that position? And then how would that position also support the district as a whole in meeting its goals? As we know that we are in a teacher shortage and we have struggled with recruitment, and this would be a key position that would help us in that arena as we move forward. So that was one of the pieces. We do have additional supports that we would be able to put into place on that campus to support and sustain the systems that are already in place. We have not only a very strong instructional coach who's already there and on that campus, and an experienced person, actually even handled our summer school program over the last summer, as well as we take district level people that are housed at different places. For example, a district level instructional coach that's typically is housed at a different campus would just move over to that campus to be a readily available resource, as well as the director of Title I, who could be a readily available resource, not that it would change the role of that person, but that an additional person that would be available if needed, as well as then we have the roving principal position that would go directly to that campus if they didn't have a school site that they would need to cover on any given day. So those were the positions that we felt that we could support. But I definitely do understand, and I do understand that we have some COVID changes right now and different, criteria and things that are additional burdens on the campuses at this time.
My concern with that thought process is that, to your point, we are in the middle of a teacher shortage nationwide. Yet we are choosing to take a qualified teacher and administrator away from a campus and put them into a position that does not require certification. So while I firmly believe that Principal Lewis is more than qualified to take this position of the HR generalist, I am not supportive of the timing of this, because it feels to me like we are shuffling people around who are already burnt out, who are already stretched thin, in order to force this change to happen. I am not in favor of another Band-Aid being put on our systems. If there were a new principal named, another person to add to the mix to help relieve that burnout, but moving people around, I cannot get on board that that is the best decision for student success. I would like to hear what any other board members might have to say about that.
Well, I'm wondering how do the people that are going to be moved, we don't know, maybe they want to be moved around to burn out and want to change or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the people who are being asked to fill in for Principal Lewis are not being officially moved into those jobs. They'll be doing their current jobs plus filling in that gap that we are creating by moving her to the district office.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I don't.
I have similar concerns about the timing of it. And this has nothing to do with Sarah Lewis. I'm sure that she would be phenomenal at the job. My concern is the timing as well, just given the environment we're in, the learning loss that we're dealing with and trying to recover from, and the fact that we have not wanted to have certain positions in the past. We discussed not opening up certain positions because we didn't want to move critical people from their roles in the middle of a school year. So if this were coming to us for next school year, I think it would be different for me personally, because I think that she is so important to her school and her families and her students. And I think that in the conversations that we've had for the last couple of months, it's been said that she would kind of be also still doing stuff at Dreaming Summit, as well as the HR generalist. And it feels like we are stretching her way thin while giving her a pay cut. We're going to pay more money to have an interim principal, like with the instructional coach going in and giving the stipend to them. And so it seems like we're paying more money for what?
is really my question.
So then I would ask the governing board to possibly table this item for no further discussion for a potential of a later start date.
This on. I would, there's no use, all you're doing is prolonging the agony by removing this again. We need this, what's the next step? If this transfer is not approved, what would you do? Post this position tomorrow?
Well, I would probably go back to see, I would go back to the hiring group or Monica Sanders to see if she would potentially consider a later start date, because she was the one that created the committee in hiring and selecting the person. So that would be my recommendation. They already selected a candidate, so.
Would you open it back up to try to get more potential candidates if
I would not open it back up since they selected a candidate already. I mean, I guess the potential piece to do would be to open up the principal job and try to recruit for that job currently.
then the option here is to approve the movement, the transfer, effective July 1st. Is that possible to do that? If the candidate is agreeable with that.
Well, I think,
Right,
well, go ahead,
correct.
Superintendent.
I think that would be the case, is going back to see if the candidate would be agreeable to that, because then that would be able to determine our next steps.
And that we could immediately, if that person, if Sarah agrees with that, then we could open up the principal's position immediately.
Correct.
Yeah, I think the motion that would need to potentially happen tonight would be to approve the list of classified personnel as presented, with the exception of tabling the internal transfer of Principal Lewis. I would prefer that we allow the district administration to determine a plan rather than us stipulating that it would be approved in July. I would rather just basically just pull that off, and then Superintendent Gunning and her team can determine if they want to reopen the position to a different hire, if Principal Lewis, if this has any bearing on her decision, and kind of what those next steps would be, rather than us try to dictate that time frame, because this may put a wrench in the entire plan. Does that make sense, Dr. Dowling? Or can you agree with that?
We've already pulled this twice. You're dealing with a human being here
Agreed.
who is anxious, wants to know whether this is going to be approved. We can't continue to do this. What I would recommend is it be a tentative, well, you can pull this off, and so we get everybody else through, but we need to, the superintendent needs to go back to the building principal, Sarah, and say, this is what the board has agreed to. And if she says, I'm tired of this, I'm not going to deal with it emotionally, I don't want to deal with it anymore, then you move on to the next step, would be open it up to new candidates and post it.
I can support that. I mean, I think if we're just offering the position at a later time, and if she doesn't accept it, then she doesn't accept it. And I guess that it would be the same thing as us declining it today or tabling it. So I think we're all saying basically the same thing. It's just a matter of approving it for a different time frame. So I can be supportive of that, of just approving it at a later date, and then she can make the decision as to whether she wants to accept that position or not.
Yeah, I would agree.
Any other feedback or questions? Then I will entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the memo as presented, minus the internal transfer of Sarah Lewis for the Human Resources Generalist position until the conclusion of her contract.
Hear that?
I'm sorry, I would approve the memo as presented, minus the Human Resources Generalist position offering the position to Sarah Lewis at the close of her contract.
So July 1st, you're saying?
Right. I don't know when that date is, but whenever that transfer would happen with the new principal and her contract would be over. Sure.
Okay. It'd be sometime after the school year, I would assume he would make, so it'd be after May the 28th or whatever the last day. And so it could be June the 2nd, June the 3rd, based upon whether you have a new principal on board or not.
Okay, then I will, let me revise that to say after the conclusion of the school year, because her contract might be extended further on. I don't know the answer to that, but after the conclusion of the school year. Do you need me to restate that? Sorry.
I will restate it. So there is a motion on the floor to approve the classified personnel as presented with the exception of the internal transfer of Principal Lewis to be delayed until at the earliest, the end of the current school year. There's a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Dowling. Having a motion and a second, I will take the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
Mr. Honak abstains. The motion carries. I'm not certain how to handle this. The next agenda item is 7C, which are stipends that really were contingent upon the approval of the internal transfer. Do we need to take action on this, or is it automatically?
So what I would recommend is that my recommendation would be that you approve the memo, including the dates of 12/6 to 12/13, removing the dates from 1/12 through 6/8.
Okay, so I'm going to need some clarification on that. Can you tell me why we are paying an interim principal for 12, or why you're proposing we pay them for 12/6 through 12/13 when that transfer was not approved and we in fact had a principal at that campus?
Because they took on additional duties to train to be able to be prepared for when the transfer occurred. Being prepared, because you can't just walk out and leave them without training and preparing them for that position.
I'll comment, I guess, first. I don't want to leave anybody high and dry for training that they did, but I also can't support paying out a stipend for a position that was never approved. This has been pushed twice from our agenda, so we've known this was coming, and I guess I feel like we probably shouldn't have conducted training until the position was approved.
I'd recommend that the individual be paid for 12/6 to 12/13, but I can't support any further stipend for that person. I mean, we're assuming that that person's going to be the principal. I mean, I'm not clear on that. I would assume and prefer that we would post the principals if Sarah agrees that she's going to come on board as in the HR position, then you post the principal's position soon thereafter.
Right. Dr. Delling, that's exactly kind of what this was that it was pending the approval of that. So that's where you said that you would remove the 1/12 through 6/8. That would not take place since that position did not get approved for the transfer, but to approve to pay for the training that had already taken place. So that.
Yeah, I see the date. Understood.
Any other board member feedback?
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the same thing of paying for training for a position that now we're not doing. And we knew this conversation was coming a few times now. People have had multiple conversations. You've given us a lot of information about it. Obviously, questions have come in. So there was a potential that this would not go through now. And in general, I think that maybe we need to start looking at how we're doing things where things are being retroactively approved by the board, because if we are just here to rubber stamp something that's already happened, I'm not okay with that. So I don't know how we deal with that now, because I don't want to not pay somebody for something they were doing, but I just think we need to look at how we're doing things in the future to make sure we're not in this situation again.
I agree with Board Member Zaidama. I can get on board with approving the stipend for 12-6 through 12-13. But I would warn the administration that this will be the last stipend that this board would approve for a position that has not been approved and the training that's related to such a position. As such, I will move to approve the stipend for 12-6 through 12-13, excluding the January 12th through June 8th of 2022 section of this action item.
A second.
Having a first and a second, I will take the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm just going to abstain because I don't have.
No problem. Another abstention from Board Member Honak. Motion carries. Our next item is item 7D, which is the adoption and potential adoption and second reading of revisions to the Governing Board Policy BEDB agenda. Superintendent Gunning, will you be presenting this, or Board Member Clymer, would you like to take the floor here since you really spearheaded this effort?
Sure. Actually, I believe this was Board Member Honak that spearheaded this effort, but
okay.
because I presided over the last meeting, I'm happy to do it. This is just proposed revisions from the first reading in the December meeting to our agenda policy. So basically, there were no changes from the first read. So we discussed this as a first read, adding a moment of silent reflection, replacing the brain smart start, and then adding a request for future agenda items down the list before the reports, and also adding that opportunity onto the special meetings agenda. This was discussed in December. There were no changes requested then, so this is the second reading and potential adoption.
Okay, I will open the floor for questions or discussion.
Okay. Well, something very funny happened because I looked on the board docs and it showed one thing, and then on Monday, and there's a note that it was changed. And it's gone from it's gone from I don't know to a nightmare, because the way that it is right now essentially says that if a minority person wants something on the agenda, they place it on an upcoming governing board agenda. So, which in itself is kind of an enigma, because it has to be put on an agenda before it can be put on an agenda. So, and so basically what this is saying is that the board will decide whether it should be allowed to be put on the agenda. So if this first off, this is just an outrage, because what happens is that a minority puts something on the agenda. Maybe it's not going to pass, maybe it has a chance, but at least that it gives the opportunity in a democratic process for someone to explain a need. And what's happening here is the board is able to censor it. So if this was the case that it was, and I hope the public, somebody out there is paying attention, if this was in place, no one in this community would know about the transformational equity work document. Nobody would know about the equity thing. probably the Attorney General would not have ever figured out that the secret diversity equity committee was running around and creating board policy illegally. And so this is, I don't know, how did it even change on Monday? It seemed like the one that was before Monday morning at 9 a.m. when it was changed was the idea that if any two board, it started out as adding an extra feature that at the board meeting, we could throw it on the agenda. I think somebody thought that was a good idea. It's actually a little bit of a silly idea but at least the original change was that if two board members decided it should go on the agenda, then it would go on the agenda. But that's now been changed. But really what you have here is board policy that's been in effect since 2015. So it's been in for 7 years. Why is there all of a sudden this urgency to go change this? And what it's being changed to right here just simply says, okay, well, if you're in a minority and you have an opinion that isn't acceptable to the majority of the board, then you're never even going to be able to get up and say it because somebody's going to go jump down your throat and shut you up saying that it's not on the agenda. We've already had our board counsel lie about that, saying stuff wasn't on the agenda when it was. I mean, you know, guys, this is a little bit shameful, and this you know, the way the public is perceiving what's going on here, correctly perceiving what's going on, and now to sit and you're going to vote on something to just absolutely shut people up. It's insane. This should be tabled until the year 3082. It shouldn't be in here. I don't think anybody here has the competency, and it should just be left alone. It started out to get rid of stupid conscious discipline at the beginning of a board meeting, and somehow it's morphed into a fascist dictate is basically what it is, right? You know, this thing here.
Thank you for your
It was
opinion,
changed.
Board Member Honak. I believe you may be confusing this current agenda item 7D with agenda item 8C when it comes to the changes and
You're correct. I am. And I missed my cue. What I meant to do was these two should be decided. We should not pass the first one until we figure out what the second one is. So I apologize. My speech was referring, you're correct that I am referring, but I thank you that you obviously see the two are intertwined, and we shouldn't be changing the one without knowing what the other one is. That's kind of ridiculous.
well, I hear what you're saying. However, I disagree with that particular point of that. I think it's important to clarify that the reason that we are proposing to change and revise the agenda to include the board members' ideas for future agenda items is actually to allow more opportunity for board members to publicly say what it is that they would like to discuss. Now, this would not go into great detail, and it would potentially need the approval of 2 or 3 board members, depending on what we decide on the other policy. But adding a request for future agenda items, I think, better formalizes the ability for the current board members to address the topics that they believe need to be addressed.
Well, the problem is the language. That sounds fine the way you say it, but let's read what it says. The proposed item will be placed on an upcoming governing board agenda where the board as a whole will vote as to whether or not the item will be placed on the agenda.
But that's not we're not talking about that yet. We're not to that yet, Jeremy. Right now, we are on governing board policy BEDB, which is adding.
And that one is intertwined with this. It is. You can't say that we are now going to do an item. I don't, you know, whether this agenda was not put together correctly. So somebody putting two halves of the same thing in separate parts, and we're going to vote for half of it that says now all of a sudden we have a procedure on a board meeting regarding the agenda. And then later we come down to the second half of it that says, oh, what it really means is you can't even get it on the agenda because you put it's
Okay.
going to be voted down.
Okay, so can we talk about that though in two separate steps? So the first step would be,
there's a legal term. We should join these two together. I'm making a motion that we join the two together. And that is the only sensible thing to do. Or let's table this first one until we go and discuss the second one. Because to sit here and do it, it's unethical, it's dishonest to sit and try to do. I know exactly what you guys are trying to do. You've been doing it from the day I started on this board, illegally by, you know, hiring facilitators, by having your attorney come and lie. She should be disbarred
it is
for
not-
lying about the law in front of everybody, humiliating and telling the world out there that I'm dishonest and whatever when she's dishonest. And now you guys are trying to do this. You're unbelievable here. And do you think that you're going to get away with this? You've gotten away with everything. You're not going to be
Jeremy,
getting away with this.
Mr. Honak, we're not trying to get away with anything. We are being extremely transparent with requesting and proposing these changes to the agenda. We are here to discuss
Transparent was,
those.
it was on the agenda and then it got changed yesterday morning.
I don't
That
believe
was
it did.
transparent.
You are
Is that like
confusing
excellence is
we are
29% competency?
We are currently on agenda item 7D.
And I'm making a motion that it should be combined. The legal term is joined with the other obvious half of it. Anybody out there can see that these two are the same thing. They
Thank you
just
for your
need to be
motion.
put
Do we have
together.
a second? Hearing none. Motion is dead. Are there any other board member feedback regarding the second reading of revisions to the governing board policy agenda?
I will just address, at least at a minimum, the joining of the two. The reason that legally can't work, Jeremy, at least from my perspective, is that this is the second reading and adoption of the policy. The other one is a first reading. So we're not voting to approve the second one. It's merely a first read, and then we will vote to approve that later. So we can't join them together because one is a first read, and then we'll come back next month and we have to do a second reading just based on our own policies. And so really the only other option would be is to table this for another month, or, you know, there's no joining them together. So I just want to let you know
Okay,
why that
Thank you. And that's a
happened.
good point. So I amend my motion to table it. Now, if it is tabled, then it probably could in the future be joined together. But in any case, yes, I'll accept tabling it. So I make a motion to table this right now.
Okay, so we're on the agenda. That's item D. I just want to I'm getting a
Yes.
little bit confused here. I understand what's going on. I totally understand what Jeremy is saying, but Danielle is saying, I had the same issue when I saw the agenda. This is the agenda. This first read is the process you engage in.
Correct.
To get to this. So we haven't approved anything on the process, which comes down as a first reading, as it states. So we should take a vote, and I think there is a motion. Was there a motion?
To table it.
Yes, there's currently a motion on the table, or on the floor, to table item 7D. Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, table this until the next meeting to adopt both of these at the same time, or potentially adopt both of these at the same time?
Is that your intention, Board Member Honak?
That is, yes, that's correct. That's what I think I'm trying to motion.
Okay, so motion on the table is Motion on the floor is to table the adoption and second reading of revisions to board policy BEDB until such time that it can be approved and discussed in tandem with board policy BEDBA. Is that correct, Mr. Honak?
Yes.
Do I
thank
have a
you.
second?
Thank you. Yes, that is.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second on that motion? Hearing no second, I will entertain an alternate motion.
I motion to approve the adoption of revisions to governing board policy BEDB, the agenda, as presented.
Before there's a second, I know that it is in our purview as a board to, at times when necessary, rearrange items on the agenda. And if we can't seem to get a motion in a second to agree on this, can we just rearrange the agenda to speak on item 8C, have that discussion, then go back to 7D and make a final decision on that? If we can't get an agreement on the other side.
Yes, that seems reasonable.
If you've made that motion, I'll second that.
Well, that's not I believe there is a motion on the floor from board member Zaidama. We either need to hear a second or we need to kill that motion. Is there a second to approve as presented item 7D? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'm not sure, just to clarify, I'm not
Okay.
sure that we need a motion to
Okay.
rearrange the agenda. I
Okay.
don't, Amy, can you give us some clarification on that? Do we need a motion and approval to rearrange the agenda or maybe just speak on another item? To rearrange the agenda? Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to rearrange the agenda.
Okay, I motion to move item 8C up to the agenda to discuss before item 7D.
I second that.
All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will now discuss item 8C, which is the first reading and discussion of revisions to governing board policy BEDBA, agenda preparation and dissemination. Board Member Honak, I believe you have already made your points on this particular item. I would like to hear from the other board members first if they have any feedback.
Yeah, I'd like to comment first if I could, because I think I might have some answers to the questions that you raised in the last agenda item. This was originally brought forward after we had the conversation on the first read last month of BEDB changing the agenda. President Moran, as you concluded, we discussed as a board potentially changing the agenda preparation process to make it more fair and transparent and be able to have the discussion at the board level, and also to truly have the board control the agenda for itself. And this policy was written, and Board Member Honak is correct, it was revised Monday morning. And the reason for that revision was our legal counsel reviewed the policy and recommended that we do not do anything with only 2 members of the board, because that's not actually a majority, that's not a legal majority of the board. And so if we were going to have a proposal or a proposal for a policy as this, that it needs to just be a full vote of the board. So being completely transparent, the reason it was changed is because our legal counsel said that is what the policy should say, if in fact that's what you want to do. So it was by no means trying to, pull out the carpet or whatever they say. It wasn't that. It was just this. There was initial proposal for 2 people. That's what we discussed. After legal had a chance to review it, this was the recommendation, and that's why it was placed on there as such Monday.
Thank you for that explanation. And, but that doesn't change the fact that it, besides the fact that it just makes a majority say that the minority can't even talk, it also is I think Ms. Zaidama, one of the things, the reasons for this stated way back when, was that it would stop extraneous agenda items. And I would submit that, maybe some of the things that I put on the agenda, I'm thankful that they got on the agenda, and I appreciate that. And maybe everything wasn't done too perfectly as a new board member, but at least it did get, it did enable discussion. And that's an important part of democracy. But the second thing is that, actually the point was that Ms. Idema's point was extraneous stuff. Well, you're now doubling it, because now what you're doing is you're making too much, you're doubling the amount of workload on the board, because instead of having an agenda item come up as it is now, and then you have a discussion, and then the first round of discussion, and then at a later date you vote on it. Now every process is doubled. The agenda comes up, and now the board has to have a discussion and vote on whether or not it should be on the agenda. So all of that extra work is going to go into it that actually accomplishes nothing. If it's except for that, to censor it, then I guess it's good. It can quash any further discussion. But if it's done for a legitimate purpose, it's actually doubling the work. And I think that when you are putting something on an agenda, it really shouldn't be done at the board, because people say stuff, people come up with ideas, but that's not what we should be deliberating on. When everything that we vote on, people present, they've spent weeks, they've spent months, they've thought about it, they've talked to people and whatever. And if an individual board member comes up with an idea, they know that they better think it out a little bit. They know they're going to spend time to think it about. The rule is to have it 5 days ahead of time. It takes some pre-planning, and you have to look about it and say, well, is it feasible? If you're a minority, maybe it's not feasible to get voted, but it is going to get some information out there, whatever. The process has been there for 7 or 8 years, and nobody's been clamoring to change it, including everyone except for me and Dr. Dowling. You guys have been on the board for years and or more than us, and haven't seen any need to it. And now all of a sudden, we got to stir the pot with something that on its face is just has two major flaws. It's quashing a minority, and it's doubling the work. The board is voting on whether or not to put something on the agenda, and then with all the discussion, and then if it's on the agenda, you got to come back and go through it all over again. It's absurd.
I'd like to make one comment to that. I think, Mr. Honak, to quote you from earlier, just because we've always done it some way doesn't mean it shouldn't change. And I think this is the exact same concept as you mentioned earlier when it comes to teacher contracts. Just because we've always done it some way doesn't mean that we couldn't look to improve or make our board service and meeting time more efficient. I think that this is the opportunity for the board, if they have something that they want to say. If you cannot get a majority of the board to vote to even hear what you have to say, then it's not an efficient use of the board's time. If they don't even want to hear the item, or they don't think it's relevant or what's best for students or whatever their reasoning is, then I think that the agenda belongs to the board as a whole. And if a majority of the board doesn't want to have that particular item on the agenda, then I think that's the democratic process. I don't think I'm not trying to be anything other than transparent and say, these are the items before us. This is what we choose to take up, and this is what we choose not to. We can't take up everything all the time. We know that, but in certain items might fail at some times and might come back at others when they're more relevant, or be deemed to be what's best for students at that time. So I don't have any issue with voting on it as a board, even if something that I may be very passionate about or want to be able to say as a board member, and can't because the board doesn't want to hear it. If I don't have support of my fellow board members, it's not going anywhere anyway. So
democracy has a major flaw.
I would,
Go ahead, Dr. Dowling. You have the floor.
can I make?
You
okay,
go.
thank you. I would proceed with caution with this. Everybody in this up here is elected official with the exception of me. I was appointed by an elected official, Steve Watson. So in essence, I'm elected officials, and you're, as elected, you have a voice. And if you can very easily get a 3-2 board, it happens all the time, split, and they could control the agenda. If that happens, then you're losing the voice of 2 people who were elected by the voters. I have gotten 2 emails from people who saw this item and said, it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me too. But then you're taking away the voice of somebody who was elected. By doing this, I would still go back, as I mentioned last time. There has to be a way to convey from a board member to the board president, say, look, I just got wind of this. I think we need to talk about it as an information discussion item. And we need to proceed with that. And it can't wait until the next board meeting. In some months, we only have 1 board meeting, for gosh sake.
Thank you, Dr. Dowling. I do believe there is a provision for emergency items that would still be in place. I don't disagree.
It was in the first one, but not in the second one.
Yes, that was in the first one. I don't disagree with you about losing a voice. I want everyone's voice to be heard, but I think the misperception or misconception about board business is that this is a meeting of the board to conduct board business that must be held in public. This is not a meeting that should be used to grandstand and propose and support political ideologies. This is not a political stand for our board members.
Doing education is not a political
Excuse
stand.
me, I was not finished,
That is not
Mr.
a
Honak.
political stand. And democracy does
I
not
was not
work.
finished, Mr.
We're a
Honak.
republic. 3 people decide that 2 people can't talk. You guys don't understand history, the United States of America,
Okay,
or
that is
government.
not true. I
And to
will
sit
not
there and
stand
say
for
it's
this.
political, to say that it's political
Mr.
to
Honak, you do
educate our
not have the
kids,
floor.
go to hell. You're an idiot. You are an
Or
idiot.
you do not have the
Point
floor.
of order.
You're all
Stand-
idiots.
Jeremy, point of order. She had the floor. Let her finish, please.
I've sat here for a year, okay? I've sat here for a year. I've been shut down illegally over and over. So you know what? You could take your board protocol and shove it, okay? I will be civil, but when you sit there and accuse me,
You are
you
not
called me a
civil.
liar, you said all this stuff, and you sit there.
That
So
is
point of
not
order, you got the
true.
floor.
That is not true, Mr. Honak.
Oh, that's not true. You say everything's not true. You're the biggest liar in this whole operation. You hold up signs and say not
I
true.
will not stand for you to be disrespectful to any member of this board, including myself.
You've been disrespectful to me, all of you, from the get-go the whole time. It's incredible that I'm still here in this.
Thank you for your feedback.
I
Let's get back to agenda item
I haven't been
8C.
disrespectful, Jeremy. We just need to let Kimberly just finish what she's saying here so we can move on.
So what I'm saying is I want our time as a board to be spent in the most productive way possible. And I want us to save ourselves from burnout by discussing the essential items that need to be discussed and having an initial conversation can save us all from time and effort to spend on a topic that is not going to be successful. I think having the future agenda item proposal on the agenda does give every board member a voice to be able to express the items that are important to them and that they believe needs to be addressed. But I think we should have a say in then asking the district administration to spend days and weeks and months on reports and presentations to come back to us with, rather than it being one person having that ability. If it's not an item that we would support as a whole body, even have it up potential. Now, what I would say to that is, I would hope that all open to members and what it is that they are trying to propose, what might be underlying behind that. You can huff what you like, Mr. Hone, but I am a
can what?
fair
Excuse
and
me, what can I do?
huff.
Huff?
You just huffed. But I am full of your opinions and decisions. And so I would ask the same from you. You would give the rest of the board members that same respect to sit back and listen. Thank you.
I do take to heart the comment both from Dr. Dowling and potentially from Jeremy, although said in a different way, about board members feeling like they're losing their voice. I guess I look at it maybe just from a different perspective, in that your voice isn't lost. You have the opportunity, when the future agenda item is proposed, to discuss that. And you have the opportunity in an open board meeting in public to discuss that item. And it might not be a full-length presentation. It might not be, next steps and timelines and budgets and all of that kind of stuff, but you do have the opportunity to have your voice be heard, because I am absolutely respectful of the fact that we don't want one or two people feeling like they can't say what they want to say. That was not the reasoning behind this to begin with. And so your voice will be heard, because you have to put it on, you have to put that item on the agenda to discuss it in the first place. So it's not as though it's never going to be mentioned in an open meeting or for the board to review and to discuss openly. All of that still happens.
That's ridiculous what you just said, because if I'm sitting here saying, I want this to go on the agenda, and then I start talking about why we need to improve academics and we need to whatever, and then somebody's going to come along and say, well, wait a minute, that's not on the agenda. We're talking about whether to put this on the agenda. It's circular logic. Anybody can figure that out. This is so ridiculous. It's utterly, incredibly ridiculous. Democracy, the Greeks figured out it didn't work. The French thought democracy was huge, and they did their big revolution, and then they guillotined everybody that was on it. The problem with democracy is 6 people can decide to kill the other 5 people, take all their stuff and do it. We don't have a democracy here. It's called a republic. And there's limitations to what is in it. And you're turning it into a pure democracy where there's no limits at all, and you can simply sit and shut it down. And I guarantee you will use that. And there's no benefit to what you're trying to do other than censor. No benefit at all. The way it works right now is fine. We've spent more time talking about this stupid little change of the rules because it's horrible. It's horrible. You guys are utterly devoid of logic. It makes no sense whatsoever. And to sit there, Miss Moran, and sit there and say, I'm huffing or whatever. You know what? I got no skin in the game. I won awards. I'm famous. I don't need to worry about this. My youngest son is in medical school. You know what? I'm doing this to give back, because there's a whole lot of parents and people, they don't know how to stand up to bullies. They come to meetings, they talk to Superintendent Gunning, they make pleas, they write out things or whatever, and they just get laughed at. You guys don't give a damn. You go do your,
Okay,
everybody
again,
votes down
we are
equity,
off topic.
and you go and,
Again, we are
oh,
off
there we are,
topic,
I'm off
Mr.
topic.
Honak.
I'm explaining
off
that you
topic.
guys do not follow the public.
Okay, I would like to
Okay,
call for a
and they
2-minute
have no
recess.
voice, and that's why I'm here.
I would like to call
because they
for
have
a
no voice.
2-minute
And you want to
recess.
take away their
Thank
voice
you.
by taking away mine. Bang your gavel. Hello, go ahead.
2-minute. Oh.
We need to recess, just adjourn the meeting.
We are on agenda item 8C, which has been moved prior to discussion of item 7D. As a reminder, this is the first read and discussion of revisions. There is no action required. Does anyone have possible revisions they would like to include at this point?
President Moran and members of
Yes.
the governing board, could I possibly make
Yes,
a
please do.
suggestion?
Yes.
So in looking through this, and I was looking at it literally, right, by the statements. The one thing I would like to recommend is I liked the previous intro statement that we had in our original, where it said the superintendent will prepare the board meeting agendas in consultation with the board president. Rather than going through like where it says the superintendent with the approval of the board president, that just seems could be possibly limiting. So that would be one suggestion. And then I know that there was the change from the 24 to the 48 hour one. I just want the board to take into consideration that would probably then definitely need to add a second meeting, like a regular meeting every month, because we will always have those contingent items that come up in an emergency, setting with hires and terminations and those kind of things. So I just want you to be prepared that we would need to add that to that second meeting, which would be the study session / a regular meeting as well.
Thank you for your feedback. I'm comfortable with the rather than approval, consultation verbiage as well. I believe the reasoning behind the 48 hours is not to exclude any last minute items that are literally emergencies that happen in that last 24 hours, but to ensure that the board has time to properly prepare for the meeting. Oftentimes, presentation materials are uploaded 24 hours in advance, which only gives the board a very limited evening and during the day, the next day, in order to come to the meetings fully prepared. So that item is specifically to assist us as board members to be more prepared for the meetings. Any other discussion for revisions to the first read?
I would add back in the language. Again, this was changed because of legal requests, but I think we could probably go back and add the one, I believe it was just the one statement on the emergency procedure back from the original. And I can pull it back from the original. I don't have it in front of me right now, but the one, sort of saying, obviously, if it's an emergency. Oh, thank you.
I have a question. If we are doing these changes, then does that mean the next time this comes up at a meeting, it's going to be for more discussion, or?
The next time it comes up in a meeting, it
Be
would
for
be
action?
the second reading. And you then have the opportunity to vote yes or vote no at that point in time. We always do have the option to table that again, or, that's always an option. But yes. This is information only tonight. We're not taking action on this item.
Just adding the language with the exception of an emergency as deemed by the board president or superintendent. And then any board member, desiring to add. So just adding that very small piece back into.
I think that's a good change. I
Back
agree with
into
that.
this. So
Okay.
I
yes.
don't think that will be an issue, but we'll obviously run it by legal as well.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no further discussion or addition for revisions, we will move on then to agenda item 7D, which is the adoption and second reading of revisions to governing board policy BEDB. We have already discussed this. I will entertain a motion.
I motion to table it until the 8C is resolved. If I
Motion
got my
on the
numbers right.
motion on the floor is to delay adoption and second reading of item 7D until our next regular governing board meeting, when we have the second reading of board policy BEDBA. Is that correct?
And to reverse the order of them maybe, or somehow join them as Ms. Clymer suggested.
I will second that. I will support tabling this until next time and second read and approve both at the same time.
Okay, I have a first and a second. I will take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, motion carries. So we will discuss that at our next meeting. Now we will move on to section 8 of our agenda, which is information discussion agenda items. And first up there is the 2020-2021 principal and teacher aggregate of performance classifications, which has a revision and I believe will be presented by Executive Director DeCoste.
Yes, thank you, President Moran. There are two updates to those numbers that you guys approved at your board meeting, at the last board meeting. So under effective for principals, there's one additional where there was a 0. And then under developing for teachers, there are 2 where there was a 0. So it's just an informational piece. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Next, we will move on to agenda item 8B, which is the learning recovery update, which will be presented by Superintendent Gunning.
Madam President, members of the governing board, just wanted to present to you a learning update in regards to our ESSER and grant funding. Not a ton of updates since we were just meeting right before the holiday break, but definitely wanted to spend a little bit of time celebrating our teachers and staff and the learning recovery that they have already accomplished this year. If you look on the data that is projected, this is our winter reading benchmark data. This data is comparing current year data, the benchmark that our students took right before the holiday break, into to the 1920 school year, because we did not take this assessment last year since we did our fall benchmark later in the year. So that it was not taken last year. So this is comparing to pre-pandemic. And if you look at that data, you can see that our 3rd grade students are performing almost exactly where they were prior to the pandemic. 4th grade, the same. 5th grade, the same. 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So we're seeing that they are definitely making that learning recovery. And I just want to say a shout out and kudos to our teachers for working so hard in these first 6 months back. This was our district formative data that we had before, which was very strong, and very proud of the hard work of our teachers and our staff. And it is a joint effort, of course, in the learning recovery. We will continue to add data, student data, as we receive it. So pretty much what we're doing now is kind of just jumping into the process on some of these. So you'll see that there were a couple of things that were changed, like the district math coach was posted on January 3rd. So we began that process. Most of them are in the planning stages. So we're starting the planning stage for summer school. So Director John Scudder is working on that preparation so that we can have an outline planned, as well as finalizing the plans for tutoring. I'm just thinking of some updates. Most of them are holding just about the same. So either in progress or in the beginning stages. At the bottom that I want to show you is that we did and were able and eligible to put in for another grant on December 10th. We're waiting for approval, but these were some of the items that we were able to target in that. This is the after school clubs and tutoring, adding additional resources. So this is in addition to for after school clubs to help with the mental health of our students, as well as additional supports and tutoring, student transportation to support so that we have transportation to and from in those programs. That would be consulting with an outside or contracting with an outside company to help us with that. Student assessment platforms, supplemental phonemic awareness materials, special area curriculum for music, arts, including on-demand PD, certified middle school teachers to lower class sizes. So looking at some schools like L. Thomas Heck and Verado Middle School, some more laptops and implementation of computer management programs, and additional PD on PLC process. So we're waiting and keeping our fingers crossed. So we'll keep you posted if we are eligible and obtain that grant as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Superintendent Gunning, can you tell us more about the ESSER 3 set-aside grant and what the stipulations behind that are?
I would have to turn that over to Executive Director Duplate.
Okay, thank you.
So very recently, Wendy Qualls attended a webinar that shared this new information with us. She has all the details, but she sat with us and guided us through looking at things that we needed to supplement our current programming and the things we were looking at, what we didn't have enough money for. John, do you remember the date that it would have to be spent by? I can't remember this one. Yeah. So Wendy guided us in this discussion on this, and we sat and brainstormed and looked at different data, talked to different people, met with different teams to determine what else we needed. It was a quick turnaround, I know, and when it was due, and we'll see about any other additional information we have.
Okay, thank you. My concern, really the only concern in these proposed usage for this grant is the 1,000 laptops. So I think we were pretty clear as a board when we talked about ESSER 3 funding originally that we didn't want monies spent on capital items. We wanted money spent on learning loss. So if you're telling me we have covered all the learning loss and we need $1.5 million and we have to spend it by a certain day and laptops are the only way to do it, I can get on board with that. But if there's any stone left unturned behind learning loss, I'd like to see these funds redirected toward those efforts. Is there any other feedback from other board members?
Yeah, I have one question about the grant as well. The adding middle school teachers to lower the class sizes, which I support. I think it's a great idea. Is it problematic at all to use this for salaries that once that's finished, will we have to sort of reabsorb them, or how does that work? Because it's, temporary dollars, basically, not forever.
What I would typically say is the same thing with Title I funds. Usually with natural attrition, it doesn't become an issue if you have to eliminate or change positions, because we do it on a regular basis, actually annually, in regards to Title I when we have changes.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, the money would go away, so it'd be up to us to sort of manage the rest of that. Okay, we understand. Gotcha.
Any other board member questions or feedback regarding the learning recovery? Excellent. Thank you, Superintendent Gunning. I would like to echo your praise of our teachers. I know they're all putting forth their best effort, and I'm glad that that is showing in some student growth in the last 6 months. Much appreciated. Since we already discussed agenda item 8C, we will now jump to 9A. Section 9 are the reports, and first up is the report from Superintendent Gunning.
Thank you, President Moran and members of the governing board. First thing is I'd like to take a moment to celebrate you. This is actually School Board Recognition Month, and I want to thank you for all the time that you dedicate, the energy and your dedication to our children and our students. And that is greatly appreciated. And your dedication and your partnership and support of myself, all of our teachers, all of our staff, and all of our students. So thank you for that. The other thing that I would like to do is just to give a kind of a quick little COVID update. As you may know, that we are definitely seeing an increase in cases. So we have made some changes that you might have recently noticed, that we have canceled some of the showcases. And of course, those are always our favorite. We, hate to do that. But with all that our administrative staff and teachers are having to handle right now, we just felt like it wasn't really a good time for outside folks to be visiting campuses. We're also modifying some of our apple pie tours as well, as we will kind of wait in some of our PD. We continue to implement our mitigation strategies, also continue to limit any type of field trips except for things for our special needs students. also limiting the volunteers on campus. We have teachers who have so graciously and continue to sub during their prep times, as well as classified staff stepping up each and every day in our schools, as well as from a district support team deploying and going out to support as needed on all of our campuses. Our goal is that we're going to do everything that we need to do to keep our children in school, because that's our top priority. And we know that having them in our buildings is the best place for them to be. We want you to stay tuned. We'll have some new COVID updates very soon. We're waiting for some updates from the Maricopa County Health Department. We received information last week. We're just waiting for the tangible items to come our way so that we can implement the new quarantine and isolation guidelines. And then just continue to hope for folks to stay safe. We want to thank our Rotary Club of Goodyear at Pebble Creek for all that they did and the delivery of our boxes over the holiday. That's always just such a memorable event. And we want to thank President Moran, board member Zaidama, and board member Clymer for jumping in along with several of our administrators to deliver those boxes to our students in need, because I know you brought lots of smiles to many faces over the holidays. We want to thank our Avondale Police for all of their dedication and help with turkeys and food for our families over the holiday, and all of the people out there that supported our angel trees to ensure that we had lots of happy families during the holiday season. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Superintendent Gunning. Next up, we will hear from our governing board members and their reports for what has been happening since the last board meeting. Board member Zaidama, would you like to begin?
It's going to be really short this month because it does seem like we just had a meeting and then winter break, and now here we are. I did get to go and deliver the food boxes and the books to a few families, and that was really fun to do. I really enjoyed doing it last year. I'm glad we got to do it again this year. My favorite stop was one of the houses. They brought us little goodie bags to bring home because we dropped something off for them. So they gave us some cute little goodie bags that I got to bring home to my kids. And I thought that was so sweet of them. But yeah, other than that, I have not really done much. I enjoyed my winter break with my family. My son was able to come home and be home for Christmas. And we had family from Minnesota and Washington. So it was just a nice, relaxing, taking a break from all the chaos of the world and just living in our little family bubble of enjoying each other for a few weeks. I will have much more to discuss next month now that we are back into the swing of things.
Thank you, board member Zaidama. Dr. Dowling?
It's great to be back in the saddle again. And as we finish up, as we head into the last part of the school year, I just pray and hope that this pandemic, or this current surge, I guess we keep calling these surges, this is the third or the fourth, or I'm losing track. But I just hope once we're through this. An interesting thing happened the other day. We're talking about teacher shortages and teachers having to sub during their prep time and et cetera, and things like that. I actually subbed last Friday in Dysart School District. This is the first time in about 5 years as a sub, I did not have to cover a class during prep time. Never. I got so bored because it was a lunch prep. And I'm thinking, boy, darn, how come they're going to call me up and tell me to get down into somebody's classroom? And it was a pleasure, but I was shocked. There was a lot of kids. It was in Dysart, it was a high school, Valley Vista. But the kids want to be there. I hear about issues, discipline issues. I'm not seeing it in that school district. And as I get out, I will start to get out this semester. I did notice that some of the showcases have been canceled. There was at least 3, if I remember correctly. As I get out and about, I want to be I want to go in the classroom. I want to see what's going on. I want to go in a special ed class. I want to go in an ELL class. I want to go in to see how our kids are doing, because As a grandfather, as a father of 4 and a grandfather of 9, I'm a selfish man. I'm very selfish. I want the best for my grandkids as far as their education. I worry about that. And people ask me, why do you sub? Because I want to see what's going on. I want to see what's going on in the classroom. I want to see what's going on with the kids. I want to talk to the kids. I had the opportunity a few months ago I actually subbed in a second grade class. I know it's hard to believe. And the first thing I got as I'm standing at the door, is this little girl comes up to me. She looks at me and she goes, turns around to her friends and goes, "We got an old man for a sub." It didn't hurt my feelings. I thought it was funny. And then another little kid who wasn't even part of the class, a first grader, kindergarten, came up and hugged my leg. I said, "Hugging my leg? You don't even know me." But you just know they feel safe, they feel content, and they trust you. They trust you with their lives. They trust you with their education. And there's nothing more rewarding than being a teacher. When I went back in the classroom, I was 38 years old. I did a post back. I think I mentioned that months ago. But it was the smartest mistake I ever made. Took a pay cut. I don't want to tell you what kind of pay cut I took, but I took a pay cut. But the satisfaction of being there, coaching in the classroom on a daily basis, there's nothing better than that. So I just want to say that I appreciate everything that everybody is doing. The support staff, I think the world of them. They live in our neighborhoods and we have to treat them right. Bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and maintenance workers. Those are the people that make these schools. They live here. They walk to their jobs, some of them. And I just want to thank everybody who touches the school district. Working together, we'll get to where we need to be. But I mean working together, everybody. We'll get there. We're kind of running out of time. I've said that for years. Time is of the essence. Time is a variable. Doesn't mean anything. When I say all kids can be successful given time and support, I truly mean that. All kids aren't going to get there at the same time or together, but they will get there if we support them. And with that, I think I will end my comments. I don't know how I got off on that. Initially I was going to say I didn't have anything. And you guys are wishing I had said that.
Thank you, Dr.
Thanks.
Dowling. Thank you, Dr. Dowling. I appreciate that, those comments. So it's nice to learn more about you as a person. Board Member Clymer.
Yeah, thank you. I will keep this quick. Thank you for your service as a substitute. I wish it could be in our district. I understand why it can't, but Dysart's lucky to have you for sure. I just want to say thank you to the Pebble Creek Rotary, as Jody mentioned earlier. It was really fun delivering the food and books to our families. Outside of maybe the school showcase where we get to see children, we don't really get to see kids in their environment at home with their families, and being able to knock on the door and provide a box full of books and food and supplies that would help them get through the holidays was really rewarding for me personally. So I appreciate the opportunity to pair us up and match us up with people in our community that rely on each other for support. So it was very fun. Secondly, I attended parts of the ASBA annual conference. I know we're talking about professional development, and sometimes that can cause burnout all on its own. But a few interesting things that were discussed. Obviously, we're all facing the same challenges as, dealing with learning loss, staff shortages, how to partner with parents and staff to, make it through this crazy time. So lots of good ideas. And I think, as an education community, we're relying on each other and trying to, when one person has a good idea, make sure they share that with the community of educators so that we can really build each other up. So it was interesting conversations. Also, I didn't prepare anything, obviously not knowing how the organizational meeting was going to go before, but I just want to take a brief moment to say thank you to Jody and the district staff and administration, all of the board members here for making my time as board president really wonderful. Everything doesn't go as smooth as we want it to all the time, but I love this district and I am passionate about my board service, and it was an honor to represent you. I hope that, I'll have the chance to do it in the future, and look forward to any opportunities I can to be, a future service to the board. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Board Member Clymer. Board Member Honak?
Thank you. I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. And I believe in this school district, and I don't want people out there. A lot of people are frustrated. Don't give up hope. This school district is going to exceed everyone's expectations. And I know that for a fact. And things get stormy before they get better. But have hope and faith in this and in everything in our country. Amen.
Thank you, Board Member Honak. For my report, I am going to reiterate what Board Member Zaidama and Board Member Clymer said, in that I had the pleasure of delivering food boxes, and I got to partner with Megan Duplain, who let her Spanish-speaking skills shine once again this year, because I have none. And so they definitely come in handy for this particular venture. I'm very grateful for the community collaboration that we have with the Pebble Creek Rotary, and also the support that we have from our administration in that program. It's excellent. In addition, I also attended some of the ASBA annual conference, and I always learn more there, some very interesting things. They had a whole section on the superintendent review process and how to make that more effective, which, as you know, is one of our most important responsibilities as board members. I also would like to thank Board Member Clymer for her time and service as board president. You have been an excellent example, as was Mr. Yamamori before you, to me personally, for how to lead with grace and dignity and fairness above all. So I appreciate you, and I also hope that you get the chance to serve as board president again in the future. Enjoy your time off from this position.
I plan to do so. Thank you.
I'd like to close by saying Happy New Year, and actually reiterating some of what Board Member Honak had to say in his board report. We actually agree on a lot of things, which is ironic at times. But as educators and humans, I feel that we get two chances at a fresh start. One is the first day of a new school year. I think everyone goes into that with excitement and enthusiasm that this is going to be the year. And I think the other opportunity for that is the first day of a new calendar year, which we're now 11 days into. So I will say that the start of 2022 feels a little shaky and unsure for many reasons, one of which is COVID, certainly. Changes are happening and they can be uncomfortable. But I want to assure our amazing, dedicated staff and families that this board will work together to continue to make decisions, even difficult decisions, that are in the best interests of students. I am hopeful and confident that we can collaborate with each other, board, administration, teachers, and families this year, to continue to identify systems that need improvement, repair, or overhaul, so that we can meet our common goal of student success. So I'll close with a quote from Chris Stapleton's song, Starting Over. This might not be an easy time. There's rivers to cross and hills to climb. Some days we might fall apart, and some nights might feel cold and dark. But nobody wins afraid of losing, and the hard roads are the ones worth choosing. Someday we'll look back and smile and know it was worth every mile. I hope you take that into 2022 and that we all get to where we're going. With that, I would like to address agenda item 9C, which are reports from our administrators. I would like to thank everyone who spent their time and energy to prepare those reports. I know as board members, we do read them. I do provide specific feedback on items of interest that jump out at me. But we, as always, love to see the photos, especially if we can't get to the campuses and in the classrooms. We love to see the photos and all the good work that you're doing, and that definitely helps to support us as much as it does to you. With that, we are on our final agenda item, which is adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.